We should be in about, oh wait, we are now. Perfect.
We're live. Okay, great. Please join me in salute to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
which stands
one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of New Jersey, this is to state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice of regular meetings on the bulletin board of the municipal building, by mailing the annual notice of regular meetings for 2022 to the News Record and Star Ledger in December 2021, and by filing said notice in the office of the Township Clerk.
Ms. Adams.
Here.
Ms. Wright.
Here.
Mr. DeLuca.
Here.
Mr. McGehee.
Here. Good morning.
Mayor Daffis.
Here.
Whereas Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, commonly known as the Open Public Meetings Act, requires that all meetings of public bodies be open to the public. And whereas Section 7A provides that the governing body has the discretion to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation of the public at any meeting. And whereas desire of this governing body to comply with the provisions of this act, same time to conduct its business in an orderly and expeditious manner, therefore be resolved by the Township Committee, the Township of Maplewood does hereby prohibit, except as set forth in the formal agenda, active participation in the deliberations of the governing body by the public, and except as otherwise prescribed by law, does limit the public to the observations of the actions and discussions of the governing body at all of its regular and special meetings.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Ms. Wright?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. McGehee?
Yes.
Mayor Daffis?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Fritzen, and good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first of two scheduled, although there may be some more in March, hearings for the 2022 budget. Today, we're going to look at the budget requests and discuss budget for the following departments: administration, township clerk, police, fire. We'll take a break at noon for about an hour for lunch, and then we'll return to go over the budget requests for public works, community services, and our pool. I'm going to turn it over to Township Administrator Jimes and CFO Koloje to walk us through our 2022 budget process and overview.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just give a brief set of comments and then I'll turn it over to the CFO for any additions that he would like to add. What I'm going to say is really not indifferent to what I would say for the last several years doing this process in any municipality. And that's because although every municipality is very different in their goals and expectations, the infrastructure of the municipal budgets are the same. Same laws, same process, same form, same documents, etc. This process started with the initial conversations between the CFO and myself, and including the finance committee, where we set out what we wanted the goals and expectations to be in the 2022 budget that we would feel comfortable presenting to the group. In doing so, we sent out the request to the department heads. The department heads sent their request back. I met with a few of the department heads, and the analysis of those requests were pretty straightforward. We look at what potential increases they're asking for, how much they spent in 2021 to how much was allocated in 2021. But in addition to that, we had to look back to 2020 and 2019 being the last year that was a non-pandemic year. So, it wasn't as simple this year as just looking at last year's budget. We like to think that going into 2022, that the light is at the end of the tunnel and we can, get back to the programming and more importantly, get back to the revenues that we're used to having, pre-COVID. So I pose those questions to department heads. I know CFO Koloje has posed those questions. And as we go through the process here today and next week, I'll be asking some of those questions again to the department heads for the sake of the Township Committee hearing the questions that I've asked, throughout my meetings, with them. As it's not an exact science, the budgeting here in municipalities. You'll see certain line items spent more, whereas other line items were underspent. But ultimately, the most important part of that departmental budget is the bottom line. So, and that's because priorities shift and priorities change, throughout the year, and we have to just reallocate within line items. Obviously, as you know, if we reallocate within budget items, that requires transfers to which you would be voting on at the end of each year. And I also say, I emphasize, and again, I know most of you are all experienced, so I'm speaking to the choir to an extent, but for the sake of the public, there's no magic wands, right? There's little changes in any of the operating expenses that you're going to see as we go through this budget. The main drivers of the budget in every municipality, including Maplewood, are always the same. Salaries and wages, contractual, insurance, debt service are the main drivers of any budget. And not to pick on department heads, but the reality is that the drivers of the budget are public safety, police, fire, and public works in every town in New Jersey. So, that's where your money's spent, that's where your public safety is kept, and that's where your town infrastructure is maintained safe. Statutorily, we have to introduce by March 31st and adopt by March 29th. So if it appears that, to the public, we're starting this process, a week or so later than we're usually doing, we are still within the well-established timeframes that were extended by the Division of Local Government Services. Also statutorily, we have and expect to be within both important caps, the levy cap and the appropriations cap. The appropriations cap limits our increases to 2.5%, or the COLA, whichever is less, unless you pass an ordinance which allows for the 3.5%. And our levy cap, which is often referred to as the 2% cap, so-called 2% cap, requires us to keep our tax levy within a certain, which is called 2%, with the exceptions such as, library pension, debt, health, emergency, certain grants, shared services, and public-private agreements. And we fully expect and don't see any issues with providing you a budget that fits within all those statutorily caps within the statutory timeframes. My final presentation to you will be as we near the end of this process, as you get to ask the department heads questions and decide if you want to fund any of the personnel requests and the operating expenses and the capital presentation, to where I'll have a fuller picture of what will be introduced at a public hearing or an introduction at some point, so you can see the impact of the decisions you're making on the tax rate, not only now, but in the future. So with that, I would just say finally that we, had a tough year. We've had a tough couple of years, obviously. And, I am just in my year here or so. And, previously I'm proud of the way the public employees have handled the challenges over the last several years, with COVID and with closing, still a dedicated commitment to providing the level of service that the residents of Maplewood deserve. And in my year here, I haven't seen anything less than that. So I'm happy with, the manner in which the department heads have functioned and given these challenges, as they've been up and down over the last year, thinking we were out of something, then going back in. So I'll turn it over to the CFO to see if he has anything to add to that. And then we can just get right into the meat of what we're here to talk about today, our departmental budgets. I do have, just so you know, department heads are on standby if we start getting a little early with some of these smaller departments. Some of them are aware that they might jump on early, so if that's necessary.
Mr. Kolodziej?
So just to reiterate what Mr. Jimes had said, the local finance notice came out earlier than usual. It's a game that the state plays from statutory, introduced by February 10th. They eventually send out a local finance notice and amend that date. And so the new date for introduction is March 31st, or the first regularly scheduled meeting thereafter. So we have until April 5th, I believe, is our first meeting in April to be able to introduce a budget. The levy cap is going to be a hard levy cap for us this year. In past years, we have exceeded the 2% levy, but that's because we had a levy bank available to us to add to it. This year, that is not available. We have exhausted all the levy cap bank in the last two budgets. So this year is going to be a hard 2% levy cap that we're going to need to deal with. We ran revenue numbers because the state passed a law last year that allowed, because of the pandemic, the ability of towns to not strictly go with what they brought in terms of revenue in a given year, but that you can take a 3-year average. So we ran those 3-year averages again because we took advantage of that last year. We ran those 3-year averages again this year, and it would not be advantageous for us to do so, basically because last year we had 2 good years and 1 bad year as an average. And now we've got 2 bad years and 1 good year as an average. So the numbers for revenue are going to be better by what we collected as opposed to averaging out what we collected over the last 3 years. We have a deferred charge that was $2.6 million. We received our $1.3 million from ACRA, which is the American Rescue, ARPA rather, the American Rescue Plan Act. So we have already received $1.3 million back in June. We anticipate receiving another $1.3 million this coming June, and that will alleviate the deferred charge that is hanging over our head. Otherwise, we would have needed to raise the entire $1.3 million in this year's budget, which would have obviously made things more difficult. 2023 is going to look a little better for us in terms of relief. We've got debt service that will be coming off the books in 2023 to the tune of almost $2 million. We also have a FEMA claim that is in. We can't anticipate that as revenue, but obviously when FEMA finally gets around to reimbursing us for IDA, which will likely happen later this year, that money would then go to fund balance, and that would give us the ability to use surplus as a revenue source in 2023. So 2022 is probably our last year of 3 years worth of really having to make difficult decisions, and this process is probably going to be a lot easier next year. But since none of us have a time machine, we're going to need to deal with the cards that are on the table before us for 2022. And I think that pretty much just adds anything that might have been missing from Mr. James's presentation.
Mr. Kaloje, the fact that you were very positive, just knowing you as a half empty glass, makes me feel very good as we move forward.
Or should scare you, sir. I'm not sure which.
Yes, I agree, Mr. McGeehee. When the CFO, especially CFO Kaloje, who's very diligent, when he is positive, that's a wonderful thing. So thank you both. Thank you, Mr. Jimes, and thank you, Mr. Kaloje. For the public, as you've heard, this is the budget process. This is where we make everything and break everything. This is where we make difficult choices every year. This is where we have to balance all of the needs, all of our services, all of our requests against exactly what we can do with the limited budget that we have. And, you know, this is really the most exciting and most important thing that we do as elected officials. And, you know, we wish that we had more residents who would interact with us in this process. But as Mr. Jimes stated, I join him in wanting to do a public meeting beyond what we do at the Township Committee. When we adopt our final budget, we will have a separate session for the public where we will present the entire budget and have an opportunity for residents to interact with us, and we can explain things to them in greater detail and in plain language, because a lot of what we're going to be talking about today can be a little off-putting. And we're looking at charts that people are not looking at if they're following us on YouTube or with us here in person. And so we want to have that opportunity to really let the people know about our decisions, how we're spending their tax dollars, their hard-earned tax dollars. So with that, we want to remind the public that this is a discussion today. There will be a public comment period at the end of the department presentation. So we welcome your concerns and your remarks and your comments. We're typically don't make decisions in these presentations. What we do is we have discussions and we ask questions of our departments so that we can get to the bottom line of all of the department needs. So with that, let's go into administration.
I know as part of administration, you'll see YouthNet listed next to that. YouthNet has requested the same amount in the past of $15,000. There's some minor reallocations within the sub-accounts. I see in the audience, we have Diane Malloy, who I believe is the director of YouthNet. So I don't know if you want to just, since Diane's here,
Yes.
go into any questions as it relates to that.
I think that's great. Ms. Malloy, good morning. Thank you for joining us this Saturday morning.
Good morning.
It's good to
Nice to
have
see you all. Yes.
to see you as well. Go ahead. The Zoom is yours.
Okay, so I have a presentation to give to you, but I also have a PowerPoint that I'd like to share. It's brief. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, so share screen, yeah. Do you have to let me in to share?
Bailey?
I'm not sure. I think, let me try something here.
Oh, there you go. You're a co-host now, Diane. Maybe you'll
Okay.
try it now.
Do you see it? My screen now. Share
Nope.
screen.
Did you
Diana,
hit?
you're pressing the shared screen. You see the green square, it says share screen at the bottom of your window. You see it says shared screen? There you go. You got it. Good job.
Does everybody have it?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so good morning. I'd like to tell you about YouthNet and what this year has been like for us and where we're heading in 2022. As you know, YouthNet's goal is to engage the youth of both South Orange and Maplewood at the middle and high school level and community so that they feel a welcome member of our towns and can grow into civic-minded, strong, confident young people and eventually grown-ups who embody and uphold the values that our communities support and deem important in today's society. 2021 was a challenging year. Our schools were closed to in-person learning. Our winter and spring sessions didn't run as they normally did, but they did run. So we struggled with how to continue to offer connectivity to young people who are isolated and struggling. It was challenging. We weren't able to conduct our chat and snack forums at CHS. Our extended enrichment program was closed and our mentor and internship program didn't run. On a more positive note, we were able to offer clubs virtually, thus integrating the middle school population and giving students more choice. We ran over 50 clubs in the winter and spring of 2022, serving over 500 students. A byproduct of this was exposing teachers and students to larger populations of teens and enhancing relationships at a time when social isolation was at a very low point. Let me just show you who's on our board. And you probably know all these people. So I'm going to click right past that and go into our clubs. We had a good experience virtually. And in the fall of 2021, we were back to in-person learning. Socialization was necessary since many sixth graders had missed their entire first year of middle school, and issues of adjustment and personal growth were at hand. Our fall registration was so robust that many clubs were oversubscribed, and we had to close them because we couldn't accommodate the students in the space that we had. Our Minecraft club had over 50 participants at each school. This was kind of a hybrid. We ran it in person at SOMS and in person at MMS, but we allowed the students to connect virtually so they could continue the relationships they had developed in previous sessions. So it worked out really well, and we plan to do this with other clubs like the chess club so they can play across schools. The fall also saw the addition of the Playwright Club. In 6 weeks, SOMS students produced Frankenstein Meet Abbott and Costello, a live performance, which you can view on our website. And at MMS, the Beautification Club was a huge success. And you can see how students improved the school environment with various murals and sayings. That's all on our website as well. The need for after-school activities has grown in these uncertain times. Teens and families are searching for opportunities of engagement, ways to get connected to one another, and develop life skills that promote health and well-being. Many of our clubs address this, from our Spectrum Club to Real Talk to Quiet Corner, yoga, chess, our podcast clubs. The list is on the YouthNet brochure, which is published each session and mailed to every parent. It's also on our website. So in 2022, we plan to continue our club structured programs in hopes of introducing a community activity club, piggybacking on our podcast club. And we also have plans to run an Asian club with both middle schools, which is the first time we've done this in conjunction with the local HSAs and in hopes to participate in the May event. We also have plans for a double Dutch club, which we've been trying to get off the ground for several years. Did I skip this one? Okay. At CHS this spring, we plan to begin our Real Talk Club with the guidance department, and some of the students who were participants in 8th grade will now continue in 9th grade. We also plan to offer our mentor and internship program this summer. Donna Collier has put together a series of after-school workshops where she will engage high school students that have enrolled in the program about job skills, interviewing, and managing expectations while looking for a job. We hope to get our mentors locally from the village, both in Maplewood and South Orange, and residents who may have an opportunity to mentor young people. I'd also welcome any help or assistance you might have in this area as well. Then we make a placement or a match based on interest and follow the students throughout their time with their mentor. Our survey told us that this is something that the teens are really interested in getting to try while they're in high school. Our hope is to reinstate the snack and chat forum for the spring. This depends on the climate at CHS and if we can congregate large groups of students. We may have to make it into smaller groups over several days. We're trying to determine that. Now onto our fundraising efforts. Camilla Titleman, I believe she would like to come into the meeting. She's our board chair and she would like to talk to us about our fundraising campaign, direct mail, our emails to all registered families, Giving Tuesday, and Facebook fundraiser. Is Camilla there?
It was just lighting. So joining us.
Do you see her? Yeah, I think she's on.
You're on, Camilla. You just did.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. How is everybody today? So I just wanted to tell you about our fundraising efforts this year, which were pretty intense because, as Diane explained, being online and then pivoting back to in-person was a challenge. So we ran a real robust fundraising campaign this winter. We reached out the community in a number of ways, explaining our mission and asking for additional support. First, we sent out our annual fundraising letter to new and previous donors just before Thanksgiving. Then we switched to an online campaign that began with Giving Tuesday emails and included 4 other solicitations through the end of the year. In addition, we created a number of asks through our Instagram account, and a number of board members supported their own Facebook donation pages. Finally, the YouthNet coordinators in the middle schools lent a hand by reaching out on Giving Tuesday to the parents of the YouthNet club members. We have a couple of outstanding commitments, but hopefully we expect to reach our goal of $10,000 in the next year or two, month or two. Sometimes it feels like a year. Anyway, as Diane mentioned, when the pandemic shutdown happened, we lost the revenue from our extended enrichment program, which is a big support for us in terms of revenue. It serves the students who are in the building until 6 o'clock. These students have access to all the clubs 5 days a week, to open gym, and to a homework tutor. We lost that income for most of last year, and we hope to make some of it up with these additional fund efforts to sort of get us back on track is the goal. As Diane mentioned, we have 2 great programs at Columbia that we really haven't been able to do for 2 years that we would like to reinstate. The first is the mentoring program, which Diane mentioned, where we place students in in businesses across town and often in the township's offices too, which we hope you guys will support us with. And then it's kind of like an internship. It's they learn about resume building, just being in a business, and it actually is very successful. And the mentees or business owners are always really happy with how things turn out. And it's great for the students, particularly the older students who are looking towards college and need something extra on their resume. And then the second is this snack and chat, which we had just started to get going in 2019, which we have something at the school called the YAB, which is a small group of Columbia students who sort of suss out what the feeling is at the school and the issues are for the students. And then we had this huge sort of seminar gathering where the students talked about their issues. It was the atmosphere within the school. It was the relationship with the police department in both towns. They were very involved in what was happening in the environment. And we were really lucky to have experts, members of the community come in and talk to these students. We had table set up, and it was kind of like a speed dating kind of thing. Each expert would sort of take 20 minutes and have a real dialogue and discussion with the students. So we really want to get that going, but that's quite a big undertaking. And let's see. And then lastly, the students, and Diane also mentioned this, in both middle schools have really voiced a strong desire to get sort of more invested in the community at large, but in both buildings. And so we want to develop a pilot program that really helps them understand how the communities work, what they can do as middle schoolers in the community. And so we're looking forward to that. But all of this takes some financial support and a lot of effort and time. So we're hoping that this will be a successful year for these things. And so for all the support you guys have given us through the years, we are grateful for the donations from the community and from the Townships Committee. And we hope to solicit more support over the coming year to help us reach our goal.
Thanks, Camilla. Okay, so now on to our budget. If you look at the pie chart, our contributions were up from last year, which were 39% to 43.26% in 2022. Our grants shifted down from 18 to 12%, largely due to the Municipal Alliance funding being cut. That funding is now being allocated by the state to COVID relief measures. Our total revenue and contributions total 58%. We are holding our own, even with the extended enrichment program in the fall, not running until the fall, which is September to December of 2021. This was a significant revenue producer for us, and we hope, to continue it more robustly in the coming months. In sum, in 2022, YouthNet plans to continue to act as an advocate for after-school programming and hopes to be ready to respond to the needs of our community as we figure out how to deal with our new state of normal, social distancing, masks, no masks, and how to keep staying engaged and active in our community and the world around us. YouthNet is there as a resource for young people and their families as they figure out ways to re-engage and connect, while parents may be working from home or uncertain about what will be next. And young people need a safe place to be and stay in touch. To that end, YouthNet is asking each township for $15,000 to support our organization. These funds will be allocated towards scholarships. No one is ever denied participation for financial reasons, and also to support our club structure, thus allowing us to try new ways to keep our teens active in a positive environment. So thank you for your time and continued support. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I was muted. Ms. Malloy and Ms. Finch, thank you both for your presentation. I'm personally aware of a few of these programs. I know students who are participants, and I have to tell you that what you do is absolutely exceptional and admirable. Our students really need mentoring and networking and engagement now more than ever, as you explained, as we're coming out of the pandemic. And hopefully it's becoming an endemic. So we, I really salute everything that you do, and I want to throw my hat in the ring to be a mentor. I think our students.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes,
Reach out to me. I love doing
I
that.
will. Okay.
Our students should know how their local government works.
Yes.
There's a lot of great things that we do that build community, and they should be part of that. So
Listen, if every department took one, that would be amazing.
Yes.
If every department took a high school student, it would be so great. They
Great.
have no idea.
Well,
I'm
we're-
just throwing it out there, just throwing it out there. So,
Even including the police department or the fire department or,
yeah, everyone.
no,
everyone.
they would
Yeah.
love this.
So thank you very much. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you. That'd be
You're
great.
welcome. Are there any questions for my colleagues for YouthNet?
Nope, just great job as always.
Thank you.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Okay.
Thank you,
Just let
Dr.
us know who our new liaison is, will you?
You don't have a liaison right now?
No.
I thought committee member Craig was your
I
liaison.
thought, yeah, we
Are
haven't
you?
had an
Oh,
opportunity.
excellent. Excellent.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Good. I'll be in touch. Thank you.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. All right. Thanks again. Bye
Thank
now.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, let's give Camilla an opportunity to exit. Okay, so we're going to move over to administration.
Okay, my administration budget is fairly straightforward. As you'll see, there's no significant increases being requested in any of the sub accounts in both administration, human resources, or IT. The only significant increase that I'm proposing at this point is approximately $30,000 increase in labor attorney expenses, and that's not a result of new labor council. That's a result of ongoing issues that continue due to some of the mandates we put in place last year, and many of those grievances are still ongoing. Many of those I expect to go for some time as up the PERC ladder into arbitration, et cetera. In addition to some of the ongoing litigation, most of which that part will be covered by insurance, but the discipline and grievance issues that are ongoing are not going to be covered by insurance. So just to have a little buffer there, I think it's going to be important to have some monies there. Otherwise, as you see, it's pretty straightforward. There's no significant increases being requested in any of the other line items.
Any questions from my colleagues? Great, we'll move over to.
Mr. DeLuca has questions.
Uh-oh, go ahead, Mr. DeLuca. Sorry.
Okay. Mr. Jimes, are we going to hear from the other groups, the Community Coalition on Race, Springfield Avenue Partnership, and Maplewood Village Alliance?
Yes, that will be either at the next meeting or a potential third meeting. None of those, just for the sake of clarity, have requested any increases, but yes, we can set those up to be heard.
Okay. And at the last Township Committee meeting, Mayor Daffis spoke about the 4th of July. And that's not reflected in the budget anywhere. It normally would be under special events, and then we haven't budgeted anything for Juneteenth either. So we need to put some money in there for those activities.
Okay.
And I would just add to that, this year we should be hosting Juneteenth because South Orange hosted last year. So that's a priority to me over 4th of July, just for the record.
Okay. We'll come up with some figures and have them ready for you to plug into this section of the budget.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so we'll move over to the Township Clerk.
Morning, everybody. Thank you for the elevation. I've never been on day one, second budget, but I'll take it. So thank you. You all received the budget of the Township Committee, which I manage, in addition to the Office of the Township Clerk, and also the narrative. So assuming you know that you've looked at the narrative, there are a couple of things I want to highlight, though. Some of the goals for 2022, and I just want to continue to say that the number one goal of the department, the Township Clerk's office, is certainly to serve the residents in the township as we did during a global health pandemic, and also as we seem to be coming out of it. But I think the public was served well with drop boxes, online applications, and dissemination, and at times able to come into the building. But the key that I want to tell everybody is the Office of the Township Clerk certainly is an information central for the township. Most new residents and even businesses come to the Township Clerk's office first to be directed or assisted when they're looking for information. So we continue to take pride in that and our ability to perform that. So some other goals that I just want to highlight that I have for the department. As you all know, we have a new agenda maintenance program, which has been a great thing to bring us into a better way to manage the agenda for the township committee meetings. And we're looking forward to an events management program and the continuing of the board and committees. So my number one goal really for the department for 2022 continues to be the importance of education for all members of the department. And that's training, obviously, and keeping the members of the department up to date on the activities that pertain to the clerk's office. So another thing that happened and promoting going forward are our special events, which I look forward to adding back certain things we haven't been able to have during the pandemic, and that would be our volunteer appreciation, which we have not been able to have our dinner for a couple of years. I look forward to possibly being able to have that. Maybe an in-person Veterans Day, and the employee appreciation picnic was held. All of these are coordinated by the township clerk and the township clerk's office. So again, we're looking forward to maybe some in-person. And we will continue the coordination and licensing of COVID activities, the outdoor cafes and such. And we have been receiving updates for 2022, which I had mentioned to the Township Committee, at least a requirement for certificates of insurance for the year, just to cover the business and the township. So again, that would be for 2022. Our achievements in 2021, we successfully administered 2 elections that had some COVID impact. We were able to make recommendations to Essex County to move our polling location due to construction on a school. Both of our recommendations were accepted by the county. So we're utilizing the Woodland and Columbia High School currently. Again, we have been managing all the COVID licenses for cafe licenses, the ABC cafe licenses in the village on Springfield Avenue and on one on Irvington Avenue. We continue to manage over 1,000 open public records requests that come in daily in the department, accepted, transferred to the respective department, and the coordination to stay with the 7-day mandate that we must have an answer. And we also have the registrar in the Township Clerk's office who spends quite a bit of time on marriage licenses, certified copies, amendments, and all the requirements of the registrar's office. So we're also coordinating and issuing parking permits, jitney permits, overnight parking, and the monitoring of who is eligible for the 12 to 15 homes or so in Maplewood that do not physically have a driveway. So that's just sort of highlights of the department. We have a lot of counter traffic. Walk-in, I'm sure will progress as things open up. But again, I want to stress the importance of the clerk's office with serving the public directly and being pretty much the first line of interaction with the Township of Maplewood. So I'm going to go on to the budget, Mayor.
Yep, please.
Thank you for letting me do the highlights of my narrative. So the first one would be the Township Committee budget. And as you can see, there's really no change. I would mention, though, that the Green Fair, we're going to have a Green Fair. And traditionally, back in 2019, we had $5,000 on that line item. Mr. DeLuca, does that seem reasonable again?
Mr.
I'll take it.
McGehee is
Yeah.
the liaison,
Yeah.
I believe so.
Yeah, that's fine, Ms. Fritzen.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. So if there's no further questions, again, everything's pretty standard, the same that we've had over the years. We've been able to manage your budget with the special events, with any conferences and seminars and things that you need to attend. So if there's nothing further, I'll go on to the Township Clerk's budget. Again, pretty standard from previous years and no special requests. So if you have any questions, please let me know and I could tell you, for example, the election expenses, that's like a dedicated line that we must pay for the mailing of all the sample ballots for the primary election.
So I do have a question on this one because the budget we got last night has 0 salaries for the township clerk. I assume that that's not correct.
Hope not.
The budget we got last.
That is a cut and paste error. My apologies.
Okay.
If you want, let me pull up the budget here. And we'll take a quick look at what we have for the township clerk. So the township clerk, and this is inclusive of any personnel requests that were submitted, is $290,000 for salaries, $3,200 for extra help, $3,000 for election overtime.
So it's increased. Okay. And the salary increases for an additional person there, Ms. Fritzen?
That's correct. The salary increase is going to be a request for an additional person for the department to help with the workload. Any other questions regarding the line items?
I had one question, Ms. Fritzen, and thank you. One of the line items is Green Fair. Is that the Green Day event?
Yeah, the Green Fair, Green Day event is in your budget.
Right.
So I think the Township Committee just agreed to put $5,000. Mr. McGee thought that that would be fine, the $5,000.
Right. Where is that in our budget? I'm looking for that. Oh.
Item 206.
Oh, right.
110,
There it is.
206.
There it is. There it is. Okay. Thank you.
Just, I think for a point of order, Mayor, especially for Ms. Kripe, why don't we start reading the last 9 digits of the line item so people know what, because I have, yeah, I got you, Ms. Kripe, because I know, I mean, we've been doing this for a while. So let's just say line item and the 9 digits, and then that way everyone can know where we're at.
Fair enough. Thanks.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Township Clerk? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Fritzen.
Thank you all for your support.
Absolutely. So I think next we have police, and we're running ahead of schedule, which is a good thing. Are they with us yet?
The chief is, I'm promoting him right now.
Okay, great.
Good morning, all.
Good morning, Chief. Chief, we're a little bit ahead of schedule, so if you're ready, we're ready for you. Before you get started, I have a question for Mr. Jimes and Mr. Kaloje. The department narratives, not the narratives associated with the capital or personnel requests, but the department narratives, achievements, objectives. Did we receive those? I don't remember seeing those.
We've only received from a few departments at this point in time. So Mr. Jimes can send out a memo on Tuesday and remind everyone that they need to get in their narratives. I think we have it from engineering and DPW. We have it from the clerk. We have it from community services at this point.
But we don't have it.
No, we have not accumulated all the departments yet.
Yeah, but can we get the ones that we're hearing now?
Sure,
Like the ones that you already have, we should have.
I'll email those out right now.
And we're on 211, right? Line 211 from,
Say that again, Ms. Craig.
we're looking at line item 211 from the Excel spreadsheet. Starting about there.
You mean for police?
Yeah.
It starts,
Police is.
It's I'll slack it to you, but it's
Police would start out at 20125.
Okay, yeah,
That's
I'm
the
there.
first 3 digits.
244 on the spreadsheet.
yeah.
Okay. So with that, Chief Deval, we're ready for you. Sorry about the delay there.
No problem.
Good
I
morning.
submitted my budget goals and objectives on December 6th. So I'm sure they'll make that available to you. First thing I would like to indicate is that my operating budget, my O&E, this is the second year where I've asked for no increase in my O&E. My budget goals and objectives for 22 are fairly simple. From a budgetary perspective, I was doing my best to work with the township through COVID, as the BA and the CFO have asked. We've come in well under budget the past 2 years, keeping our expenses down into an absolute necessity. And as we go through the pandemic, and get our budget back on track. That's was the main priority for 22, which was to keep it simple. The first thing I had listed in my budget goals and objectives is training. And I made it first because training is the one thing, is the most important thing. It's the most thing that is asked for the police department, asked for from the Community Board on Police, which we certainly are coordinating with. And we all know that training is expensive. Having a well-trained officer is a benefit to the department, the officers, and the public. So that's why I made that number one in my goals and objectives. My second goal is the police fleet. We'll talk about a little bit more about my request when we're at that point. The police fleet over 21 was fairly decimated. There were 4 accidents. There were 4 vehicles that were involved in Ida, and we had 1 vehicle that was with a blown engine. So we have 22 marked police vehicles, and of those 22, we had lost 9, and 7 of those vehicles are marked vehicles. So, due to unfortunate circumstances, we're looking at replacing somewhere around a third of our fleet, and this is also the opportunity to make some significant changes in our fleet. I also realize how expensive replacing a police vehicle is. So again, keeping with being fiscally responsible, that's why I also have simplified my budget for this year. My third and final request was to update our fingerprint live scan equipment. This is actually not something that we have an option to do. It's mandated by the federal government, and the equipment that we have is very old, and the company MorphoTrack that it's actually IDEMIA, but MorphoTrack won't even service this unit any further. Again, keeping with fiscal responsibility, you'll notice that we've recycled several items in this quote so that we can just get our basic needs covered. We're not going to get the live scan machine cabinet because we have one. We're gonna reuse that. The printer as well is over 8 years old, and there's no way around replacing that. It's a specialized printer for fingerprint cards, and it's not something you could just go in off the shelf and buy anywhere else. Now these are state contract items through a company that is authorized, is one of only 3 authorized vendors to sell this equipment. We'll be staying with the same vendor that we currently use, and that is to save us money on the equipment. I have not asked to replace the cameras associated with this equipment. Basically just to be a software upgrade and a computer. You know, I know people haven't heard this much anymore, but the computer that's running this software is Windows 7. So we are way out of compliance with that. Microsoft won't even give us updates for it. So, Mr. Mayor and the Township Committee, that's all I've asked for as a part of my budget.
Other questions for the chief?
I'm looking at, so obviously we're not talking about salary and wages, but that said, I'm looking at line item, last 9 digits, 240-102, crossing guards, parking officers. Is that handled as a salary wages line, or is that an OE line?
To my understanding, that's a salary and wages. I never appears in my OE lines.
Okay, we need to mark that as crossing guards, parking officers SW for the record. So that was my only question. I'll yield the floor.
Can I just follow up on that question, the same line item? This year, we budgeted 264,800. I'm sorry, in 2021. In 2022, we're going up to 405,000.
Right.
Why the increase?
Pool is back in session.
So is that consistent with previous years?
I was looking at that
No.
same line too, Mr. DeLuca, and I think it's definitely spiked. If you look at 20 and 19, that's why it caught my eye. I'm assuming it's because we are underpaying we're not in our market. The market might stand for more money for crossing guards to make sure we retain them. Is that the narrative here?
The other issue that we're going to see on any kind of salaries that are hourly employees like this is the continued increase of the minimum wage. It's been going up $1 every year. And so that is also going to impact how much we need to budget for crossing guards, lifeguards for the pool, building attendants for community services. All of those have adjustments based on the fact that the minimum wage has gone up by $1.
So does that answer this question though, that was posed by both Mr. McGehee and Mr. DeLuca?
Chief, does this reflect any additional crossing guards?
Right.
Yes, 3.
Okay, thank you.
But again,
And is that in response to concerns from the community that we're not covering enough?
yes, we've added an additional guard at Spring and Boyden. We've added additional guard at Tuscan and Burnett, and we've added additional guard on Valley and South Pearson. However, because I'm not looking at the spreadsheets, the CFO is correct in the sense that I'm not sure what number you're looking at, but we basically haven't had school for the past 2 years. So what we laid off all the crossing guards during that time. So that may have made those numbers skew.
I certainly understand for the last year, but if you go back even to 2019, I mean, we're way above that. In 2018, we're way above that. So if you could just come back, I think listen, I would like to support more crossing guards. So I'm not questioning that, but I would like to understand it's a pretty significant bump. So if you could just come back and maybe explain that a little bit more, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I would agree with Mr. DeLuca, because like I said, I wanted to know this was a salary wages conversation or OE's conversation, right? Because we don't talk about salary wage, we're talking about. So I agree with Mr. DeLuca. It was evident to me that was a FTE, or what you want to call it, a bump in terms of human capital, in terms of employees, but just the narrative behind it. I think we're supportive of it based on the narrative we're getting from the residents lately in public safety and other meetings, but we just need to have that for the record.
Yeah, I agree, because when you look across the chart, we're average around 299, 289, 1 year at 325, and now we're going at 405. And again, we are not saying that we do not support additional crossing guards. We absolutely 100% do that. We just want to have a better clarity about this number, what it represents.
Is that directed towards Mr. Kaloje as a salary and wages question? Because I certainly, Mr. Kaloje and I did not discuss salary and wages for any group.
We'll pull the information and to give you the exact breakdown of any potential contractual raises that occurred between 2019 and 2020, potential 2022, along with the additions. So CFO and I can get that to you.
Thank you. Chief, I'm going to yield the floor to my colleagues for other questions, but I had one as it relates to training. I see you put in $12,000. I agree with you. Training is a top priority. I like to see that. Thank you. Is that sufficient? I know that in a couple of years before you had as much as 15,000. Can you explain a little bit why you went with 12 and not 15 or?
Well, 12, I just kept the line item the same. I've had internal discussions with the BA and Mr. Kaloje about how we would I don't know if the word save money is or bank money is, but at some point, the Community Board on Police is going to ask for certain trainings that I think that we should have money for. And I don't know, seeing that they haven't made any specific requests for me, I don't know how to budget for that. However, I did have those discussions that we should be prepared for that and to add money for that.
Yeah, I think in response to that, Mayor, in addition to what's budgeted, if you know, the way I was thinking about this is if you look at the, historical trend of the police department's operating expenses, there usually is, 6 figures in reserves, every year. So, although I like to build reserves in the budget, obviously, if there's an increase, if there's a proposal from the board or this board in general of an extra $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, we always seem to have more than enough to fund that in the way we budget annually anyway. So I'm not sure an increased line item is necessary. I think we can do that within the parameters of what we have.
Great. Yeah, and I wasn't suggesting that we increase it. In fact, I think the community board is looking at grants for training and combining training with other departments as well, so that we're not footing the bill for everything ourselves. I think 12,000 is sufficient. I just wanted to talk about it a little bit here and put it on the public record. So thank you, Chief. My last question, Chief, relates to the vehicles. Can you talk a little bit about just a little bit more information about the vehicles that are that got decimated due to Ida, and there's just no way of reusing them, repairing them, or anything like that?
Sure, absolutely. Of the 9 vehicles, actually 7 have already been picked up by scrapyard, a salvage yard, as a total loss through our insurance company. Again, 4 were through accidents, 4 were through Ida, and 1 was a Dodge Durango from 2014 that needed an engine. It just wasn't worth putting the money into. And again, of those vehicles, 7 of them were patrol vehicles, and 2 were admin vehicles. The patrol vehicles have to be very particularly equipped, as outlined in the Attorney General guidelines. They have to be equipped with certain equipment. We were able to get away with taking this is not for this budget request, but historically, when we replace a vehicle, we take the equipment from it and we put it in a new vehicle, because these vehicles were damaged and flooded. Most of the equipment was rendered unserviceable. So not only are we going to have to replace the vehicle, but the equipment. I am very proud to say, in the past 3 years, we have converted many of our vehicles over to hybrids. Our command staff now has 100% hybrids. We have a hybrid patrol vehicle. Well, actually, we have a hybrid patrol vehicle, and we have an electric patrol vehicle. And the vehicles that I'm asking for are a combination of both. I've given you the numbers of the vehicles that would bring us up to where we were at the end of this year. If you authorize 4 vehicles in whatever whatever vehicles you decide to fund, we'll go with that. But I gave you 2 options, as indicated. Where this department and this vehicle fleet has the ability to be diversified. And the only caveat would be is we lost several SUVs in Ida because of the water and floods. There's no way not to respond to emergencies during these times. And in these cases, the water got the best of the vehicles. So we have to take that into consideration. So that's also why I'm asking for where we have an electric vehicle. That vehicle is not going to be a be all end all to what our equipment is, and our equipment needs right now are we have to replace some patrol vehicles.
Thank you, Chief. That's great. Any questions for my colleagues? I open the floor.
Yeah, I have, and this may be for Mr. Kaloje, it's difficult to ascertain how beneficial or how much we're saving or not spending or by using electric vehicles and the hybrid vehicles, because to my view anyway, all the gasoline and diesel fuel is under one line item under DPW. So we have no way of knowing, like, should we invest because, an electric police car costs like 20 grand more than a regular police car. So we can't really figure out, other than our own personal, the mayor and my personal experience having an electric, knowing we save, $4,000 to $5,000 a year on gas. It'd be nice to have, I guess, that line item in the departments or some way to track the department, how much each department is using. And I don't know if we have a way to do that. I assume we do, because when they fill up at Wawa or whatever, until we get our fuel station. And then when we get our fuel station, I'm assuming there's a code that we know whether it's going to fire or for me, it would be helpful when we're trying to decide whether or not we want to buy a gas car or electric car, if we have that information as well.
I think, I'm not sure how we would do that with the Wawa. I'm sure we can, but I'm sure it'll be significantly easier once our new pumps are in place. And that's something we can do either if it's a breakdown within the budget or, just monthly or quarterly providing you that information. So you can see it'll be pretty, I've seen it in other systems, in town. So I'm assuming the new system we're going to have is very similar.
From a budget perspective, it would be cumbersome to try and track it by department. Mostly because we're paying out the bill directly from a specific line item. And in this case right now, it's all Wawa, although we do have some, Woolley, I believe, is our other fuel supplier for vehicles. That being said, I know that Wawa and previously when the DPW, we were doing it in-house, every individual has an individual fuel card. So the DPW should be able to run a report that says, here's the amount of fuel that the fire department's been using for the year. They can break it down by month if we wanted to, and they can break it down accordingly. They send us that information on a quarterly basis so that we can bill South Orange for their share of the fuel, since it's a somewhat shared service that we're doing with South Orange for the fueling. So we have that data. We should be able to produce it. We would just, I believe the DPW has access to the software that tracks that.
I just think it would be helpful so we know which department's using what. And because we're going to get asked by fire for vehicles undoubtedly, and anyway, with regard to vehicles also, I know not police, but what's our situation with buying, used versus brand new and this goes across the departments, not just police. It's just because this is the first vehicles coming up.
I'm not sure if that was directed towards me, but I can tell you that I've inquired all throughout throughout the BA, the CFO, the qualified purchasing agent, and it's darn near impossible to buy used vehicles over a certain amount, which is why we were able to purchase those vehicles from Milburn at the time, was because they were under that threshold. Now the price of used cars are absolutely crazy.
Yeah, they're like new cars. So yeah, this mostly doesn't even apply for now. So these would replace all of the vehicles that we lost in Ida, or not quite?
No, this would be car for car. So if you approve 4 vehicles, we would be exactly where we were prior to in 2020.
Okay.
Essentially.
And
it should be noted that switching over to the police SUV hybrid, I actually and I'm going to show it here, but in the Ford spec manual, it shows that you save roughly 22 to 25% on fuel for these vehicles.
For the hybrid.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, at this point, different people are asking for different things. I can tell you that my people are so pleased with this vehicle. I wouldn't ask the TC to go back to a normal gasoline engine at this point.
And Joe, are these replacements being covered by our the money from FEMA for Ida?
I haven't seen any money that has come in yet from FEMA, and we've only seen a limited amount of money that's come in from the insurance companies for claims that we put in. So my guess is if these are vehicles that were damaged by Ida, that it would be the insurance company that would be paying us out first. We could then utilize those funds to offset the purchase of these vehicles. So in theory, if the chief is, and I'm just throwing numbers out, if the vehicle is worth $50,000 and based on the shape of the vehicle, when they gave us the insurance, it was only worth 10, we would adjust the request in the capital for $40,000 instead of 50. We would utilize it as a funding source.
We do have it on the list for the FEMA reimbursement.
Yeah.
We will submit it, and then if insurance comes in, it will be deducted from any kind of FEMA reimbursement. But that would only deal with the ones that were destroyed in Ida.
Right.
Yeah, I've seen. I don't know if the town's received any of the insurance money. That's really beyond my scope. But I have seen the claims and the processing of the claims and what they thought the values were. And I would just say roughly it would be from those 4 vehicles about the cost of one that the insurance was going to pay us.
We've received some funds. I'll give you an exact breakdown on that at some point. Just a quick comment, just stepping back to the used vehicles as it relates to administrative. You know, we could make it work purchasing wise, but we often find that with the co-op pricing that we get for newer cars on, you know, administrative vehicles, they end up, the discount we're getting on those due to the mass purchasing is often about the same or sometimes even cheaper than a quality used car that you get on the market. So that's one of the other reasons that we, although look at it, usually doesn't go that way.
To date, we have received $195,914.60 in insurance reimbursements from our claims. We still have over $799,000 out.
Any other questions for the chief? Mr. DeLuca?
Let me just stick with the cars for a minute. You talked about 22 marked vehicles. You said 1 hybrid patrol, 1 electric patrol. How many hybrid supervisor cars?
Okay, so there is 2 hybrid vehicles used for patrol. The one was the new addition. So we have the Ford Fusion, which is a 19, and then we have the hybrid SUV that I'm touting now. So you have a total of them and the electric vehicle. The supervisors, there are 3 supervisors cars, and I assume you're referring to patrol supervisors, not admin. Because admin, we have 3 hybrids, 3 escapes.
Okay. So
and
then
our patrol sergeants have 1.
Okay. So maybe I'll just get this offline. Okay. I do have a question on a budget item. It's the overtime. It's 240-110. Police overtime. It's listed here at $240,000. In 2021, we spent $260,000. 2020 was 253, and then 2019 was nearly 500. Why do we have a reason for the reduction?
My scheduling. You know, that sounds, I'm going to apologize because that sounded a bit arrogant. But I've learned things over the few years, and we've switched to what's called the Power Wednesday schedule, which is the schedule that I recommended to the union. That Power Wednesday schedule was a benefit to every officer in the department. When I made chief and the dust settled, the first thing that I wanted to address is the inequity in scheduling in my department. which is why I switched over to this schedule, which gives everybody in my department, every person, the opportunity to a portion of the weekend off. And that also addressed the training issue, which was, how can you train people or none of them together if you don't have access to them? At the time that we talked about that, that was reflective in the Power Wednesday schedule, which is also taking staffing, overstaffing in certain areas, allowing for training, and knowing as chief, part of my responsibility is to identify where the overtime typically is and finding a resolution to that. If you recall, over that time, I came to the township committee and said, I need these supervisors, and this is what it will do. My goals were to reduce overtime and increase staffing. And I believe that my request to the committee and the changing to this schedule is the reason for that. And I'm sorry if that came off as arrogant.
Chief, it didn't come off as arrogant. It came off as you just came through with what you had promised us a few years ago, and you should be explaining that, because if it would be awesome if this was a norm, that we get a request for less money than we've spent, so no, I applaud you for that foresight and for doing that and making it happen. So thank you for that.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I second that. It was not arrogant. It was leadership. That's what it is. And
Yeah.
you'd be very proud of it. And we are too.
Yeah, and your people definitely see that you're fair, because that's nice. The fact that you're spreading the wealth,
You have to be fair.
Okay, other questions? Anyone? Okay, Chief, thank you, sir.
Thank you all for this opportunity.
Thank you.
Chief, have a good Saturday.
Thank you. You as well.
No.
Yeah, I hear you. Have a good day. Thank you.
All right. So do we have fire or no?
Chief is here.
Do you all need a break or do you want to move in? Keep going. Keep going. All right. Bring them in.
He should be moving over shortly. It's lagging a little.
Thank you, Bailey. Chief Alvarez,
Yeah, hold on one second, guys. I'll be right with you.
you got it.
Okay, I am there. I don't know why it's only got my back rooms on here. I don't know why it doesn't have me on there.
Is your camera on?
Oh. It was the actual, you know what it was? It was the flip was down.
Okay. You're
How's everybody doing this morning?
very good. How are you, Chief?
Doing great. I am not actually sitting in the engine bay. Mr. McGee, he told me the other day that I should have a background. So I was able to get a picture of the fire trucks. Deputy Mayor DeLuca. So I'm not sitting in the apparatus bay. I actually do have an office.
Well, I'm sitting with the guys while you're sitting downstairs.
Oh my gosh, I see that. and Deputy Mayor DeLuca has got a building on fire behind him.
That's
Yeah,
Oswood Terrace.
And you're just sitting there. There's a fire.
Taking my thunder away.
Don't worry, Chief. I'm telling the guys what to do. We're on our way over there.
Okay. And Ms. Adams, how are you doing this morning?
I'm okay. My computer's too old to put a background, so you just have
Nope. Your background looks awesome.
Okay, Chief.
Okay.
You've got the
So
your budget.
mine's kind of short and sweet. I've looked at some of the numbers, and obviously coming into December, I went over some stuff. I realized that we do have, like everybody else, we have to worry about issues in a township. So my numbers really did not go up a great deal. The only thing that I was looking at is under operating my fleet maintenance budget, I did ask for a little bit of an increase in that. And that's because of one of our fire engines that is 20, coming on 20 years old. Right now, that's because of engine 33. It's a 2001 Laverne pumper. We would look to replace that, but right now, due to merger talks, due to other things that the township is doing, I felt that we could push that off potentially for another year, as long as my guys are okay with that. My mechanic is okay with that. The only thing is that when something breaks on it, it's a couple dollars more because of prices went up on the parts. So that's the reason why that request went up as much, that extra money that it did, in case you're seeing that. The medical expense, that number fluctuates, that goes up and down. And I was advised by Deputy Chief DeMartini that the reason why that has gone up this year as much as it has, and that's under the medical expense, that's the 209 line. That's because of the members need to get their tuberculosis testing, the hepatitis B testing. And then if we were to hire anybody, they would need to go for a physical exam and so forth. So that's why that number is where that is. Just so you know what that medical expense line form is. Maybe we should next year renumber that to something else. The emergency medical supplies over the last year and a half to 2 years, and Deputy Mayor DeLuca, I'm sure, could attest to that. We were getting stuff that was through the CARES Act. So that money is starting to dry up, even though that we're getting stuff from the county, some extra equipment that was maybe left over. We have to start now worrying about what we need to purchase to operate on a daily basis. So that's why that number went back up to where it went to. If you look a couple of years ago, it kind of went up and down. So that's why that went. The examination fee, which is line 223, all the way down at the bottom where it says testing for firefighters, captains, and deputies. I brought that up because we have a current deputies list. There is only one member on it. There is a current captains list, and then same with the firefighter. Again, as things progress with talks, whether we're by ourselves or with the merger, I'm sure we're going to need to give a test. I'm okay with if we pull that line item out. It's just that we collectively as a group need to figure out that if this happens, or whether it's us alone as Maplewood or us Maplewood and South Orange, we need to put that back in there. And again, that's up to you guys. I'm okay with you guys either putting that in there and us saying we're not touching it until we need it, or us just removing it and then you guys telling me what we're going to do with that line item. So that is what I wanted to talk about under operating. The only thing that I had to bring up under capital, I did not go crazy with the capital. Like I said, we do have that one engine that is old. It's worn out. But well, like I said, we can always talk about that at another date also. But I have two vehicles that are in dire need of getting replaced. One is the 2009 Dodge Durango that currently the captain of the Bureau is using. That vehicle goes on day-to-day inspections, fire calls, whatever it may be. It's actually got 175,000 miles on it. The engine burns 12 to 16 quarts of oil in a 3-month window. The transmission has issues. It has extremely the rust issues. We have put a carbon monoxide detector close by because the exhaust is leaking. It's a $2,500 item to fix because the vehicle sold that we'd have to get a special exhaust system made. for it. So that vehicle is on its last leg, like I said, with that 175,000 miles on it. And then the next vehicle we had, which was the headquarters 3, which was going back to a 2007 Dodge. That one, the motor finally went on it, and then, which we're not driving because the motor went. And then headquarters 2 is the 2014 Explorer, and that one there has 140,000 miles on it, and it's got some major things that are happening to it. So the vehicles that I spec'd out, which are 2 Ford police type package vehicles, they're not that crazy expensive. You can see that line item under the capital. That dollar value is they're hybrid vehicles. I would love to go 100% electric, but you guys have to understand that when my personnel are out doing inspections, unless we have a fleet of vehicles, it doesn't work for us. We need to make sure that if the members are out doing their inspections and then a fire call comes in or a storm rolls through the neighborhood, these vehicles, we can't just come back and charge them if a fire call comes in or a medical call comes in. So with that being said, I went with the next best thing, which was the hybrid vehicle, which was the, electric and gas. It can change back and forth as need be. And that price that you see in there is the vehicle, the radios, the lights, the sirens. Whereas in the past, we didn't do that. We went out and bought the vehicle, and then we had to come back to you guys and say, oh, we need a couple of dollars to go put a radio in it. Oh, we need a couple of dollars to go put lights on it. So those 2 vehicles that we're looking to replace, that's the whole ball there. That's everything said and done. No extras will be needed for that. And then what I am going to do, and I promise you this, is myself, along with Deputy Chief Martini and Captain Colachuglio, who is our ace in the hole when it comes to mechanics. We're going to work on a replacement program for the council or for the township committee. We're going to come and for the VA, we're going to come up with a replacement program where we say to you, hey, listen, in 5 years, we need to replace these vehicles, in 10 years, and in 15 and 25, because it's not fair for me to come to you as not only a committee, but as taxpayers of this community and say, I need a $600,000 fire truck tomorrow. I should not be doing that. That's me dropping the ball or my department dropping the ball. So these vehicles, and I'll say this, it's not you guys not giving them to us over the years. Us having these vehicles are because on my side of the street, we dropped the ball. We kept putting a Band-Aid on it. We kept putting duct tape on it. And I'm sorry for that. Again, I'm the new chief. I'm not trying to push towards anybody else, but we're going to fix this for you, and we're going to come up with a good program. So when I come to you next year, we'll say in 4 years from now, we need to replace that car or that fire truck. So we collectively as a group could attack that plan and not hit the taxpayers hard.
Thank you, Chief Alvarez. I have a few questions, and then I'll open the floor to my colleagues for their questions, if you don't mind. Have you accounted for flotation devices? One of the things that we learned after Ida is that we needed better equipment and updated equipment. Is that in here anywhere?
So that I did want to talk to you, to the members of the committee about that. As of right now, we were able to acquire 6 suits. We kind of, did a little bit of a way to get our suits, but that's only for 6 personnel. When I was stepping in, I only had a week to throw a budget together. So when I asked, it took me, I had to get this together, and I didn't want there to be an issue. I would like to, I can give you that dollar value, whether you want it online, or I can give it to you guys, to the committee, off to the side, explain to you, listen, in order to match this, we need the same of what we did to get the same amount of suits. And then that would give us 12. And then that would cover the shift. Even with extra personnel coming in, that would cover, because for the committee, when we send 2 members into the water, we need to have members outside the water to protect those members and the civilians that are in the water. God forbid they went downstream or downriver, they got swept away. So I can ask if Joe wants to put that in there, or if the BA wants to put that in there. I can talk to them about that, maybe under the examination fees. We can cut that down drastically, because it doesn't need to be that number for the 6 more suits that I need. That's under line 223. We can cut that number probably in half, and use that number to buy 6 more suits. But we do have stuff now, and the training is going to happen. Our members will be in the Delaware River, which there's no shut-off switch at the Delaware River for those of you that have seen it. So they're going to do the training that I've had to do under Task Force 1. They're going to be trained to the same level that I do. When you all see me go across the country and we make water rescues all over, the members of the Maplewood Fire Department will be trained to the same exact level by the end of summer. So when our water events start to happen again in late August, September, and in October, trust me when I tell you, our members will be ready to go with the equipment and the proper training.
So more on that, what about the other water rescue devices in addition to the suits, like rafts and other things that we determine we don't have?
Correct. So with that, the better boat would be the inflatable boat, or some people have the term Zodiac. That's something that should be under capital because of the lifespan of that raft, or that it would be actually a Zodiac boat or inflatable boat. We do have that price. I do have those prices for you already, but we had to wait to get them because of the New Year's prices. And obviously everybody knows stuff is going through the roof, dollar value wise.
Okay. So I would like to see an updated budget with those items.
Absolutely, sir.
And get an idea of what those things cost. I did have another question here. Where are my notes? Oh, I see that overtime is less than in recent years and certainly on par with other years. Is that right?
I'm sorry, that was the overtime, sir?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, significantly less than the past couple of years. That's it. I don't have any other questions. I open the floor to my colleagues.
Do we have a reason for it to be significantly less for the overtime? If we're, you were just preceded by Chief Duvall, who did some amazing work over the last few years to get that down for that reason, but why is it significantly less in your budget?
So what we did was I looked at the prior years prior to the COVID, and some of the numbers were pretty close to what I did there. And I also have a somewhat of a plan that I wanted to talk to the committee about offline to try to help bring that number down drastically. Again, it's something that I feel that we should talk about as a group prior to bringing that up out in a public forum. So that's why I brought it down to the number it was. I did talk to the BA Jimes about that. And I did say to him that, that I did have something that I'd like to bring up. And then we did look at prior years, because if you go to that, where's that line item 110, and it brings you across, you'll see that number, what was appropriated, what was actually used, and then so forth. Like in 2020, it was somewhat in that number range. So I would like to come up, I have somewhat of a brainstorm, and if it works, awesome. If it doesn't work, again, we got to try something different to try to bring that number down, and if it works, we're all good. If it doesn't work, then guess what? I'm going to come to you with another idea and we'll change our system.
And the merger will probably have an impact on that as well, correct?
Correct. In the beginning, if the merger, if everything is where it is, listen, that number could go up a little bit in the beginning and then come back down. It could start low and stay low. Unfortunately, that one I cannot answer for you. But right now, like I said, I kind of have somewhat of a plan that might lessen the burn, so to speak.
Okay. Any other questions for my colleagues? Anyone? Deputy Mayor DeLuca.
Thank you. This is more of a question for Mr. Jimes and Mr. Kaloje on the process here. So we're looking at a 12-month budget, but during the 12 months, we're going to be doing a consolidation with South Orange. How does that affect this allocation? Because it would be in the middle of the year and we've approved a budget for this and you can't make changes until November. How do we do that? Well, I mean, we don't, unless you, I don't want to take a lot of time, but I'm just concerned that we have to be prepared for it.
So from technical,
You're muted.
Go ahead, Joe. I'll jump in after.
yeah, so just from a technical perspective, we can continue to charge the fire department line item, and then come November, we would do a chapter 159, create a new line item, which would be the amount of money that we were sending over, and then we would reclassify in the purchase orders that we're continuing to hit for that 3 or 4 months in order to move it all over to where it belongs and keep the state happy.
Yeah, and I think the other expenses, the OE expenses, could certainly be reclassified, when that time comes. Salaries and wages, could certainly be classified under any payouts or liabilities we have to pay. So I think, while there's not exact line items here, I think they fit into what anything we're going to have to pay fits into what is already here. And then we clean that up at the end of the year.
Thank you.
Other questions? Seeing none, we're going to thank you, Chief Alvarez. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And I'll talk to you all soon. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Chief.
So this brings us to our lunch break at 10:45. We're doing well.
Call Paul if you want to see if he's available.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, we could take like a 5-minute bathroom break and then come back and finish without even a lunch break. If
I could also walk us through the finance department's budget if you preferred today as opposed to next Saturday. We can do that as well.
Yeah, we can knock off a lot of this.
I'm cool with that.
Yep. Okay, let's take 5 and see if we can get Paul, okay?
And I would add, we want to put community coalitions, Springfield Avenue, and the other ones on next Saturday, and not,
Okay.
Not March, which is kind of weird.
Right. I think we should leave one session in March just to have final decisions for capital and personnel enclosed.
Yeah, but all
that's-
the presentations from outside groups should be in this space.
Yep.
Should I have them, when I send out their invitations, would you like them to be before Capitol then next Saturday
Yep.
for their presentations? Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I had to step out for a quick second. So you're going to grab Paul, you're going to grab Missy, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
I'll let you know.
We're going
Grab
to take
both. Grab them both. We're going to run.
Yeah, we're going
almost
to
through
take
this.
this
Yep.
right
Grab
now.
them both. All right, bye.
Yep.
What are we, 5 minutes, 10 minutes? 5.
I'm still reaching out. I got in touch with both Paul and Melissa to see who can get here first.
Great, thanks, Jerry.
I can also run through a finance that covers utilities, debt service, pensions, the whole bit. So I can take up a half hour if we need it.
All right, maybe 15 minutes.
I can truncate it to 15 too. Yes, sir.
We obviously want to get all the information in there. So Caesar's going to reach back out to me in a minute. So.
Our 5 minutes will be up in about a minute. So.
They're both hustling. I told them whoever can get ready first can come on. So.
Yeah, I mean, Melissa's probably thinking, what? I thought I had until 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. So.
Are you on mute?
All right, so if we're ready to rock and roll, we're going to do it. We're going to move over to finance for about 15, 20 minutes to give Caesar Paul some time to.
Caesar, Paul's calling me, so let me.
Yep. Go ahead, Joe.
There we go. So we're off of mute. Let's go to the budget. And let me just scroll down to here. So we'll start out with the finance department, which includes the revenue collection, which is both taxes and utilities, and it also includes the tax assessment. Those are the three functions that are within my department. For the most part, tax assessment is completely flat. Revenue is being adjusted, with the finance being adjusted as we take a look at what we have merged from the departments by creating the new department that the state wanted in terms of how we budget this. Some items are going down in the finance department, but going up in the revenue. Overall, other expenses has remained flat. From a salary and wage perspective, there is a requested increase to address some salary inequalities with a couple of my staff members, which obviously we wouldn't talk in detail. If we move on, auditing services have gone up slightly from last year. Auditors are well aware of the 2% levy cap, and so traditionally they.
Excuse me, Joe, can you identify the line item you're on? Because you're just kind of flying through, and since
My
this is
apologies.
all on one sheet.
Nope, my apologies. So we're going to start out at 2-0120-130. 130 stands for the finance department.
Line 62.
Yeah, starting at line 62, correct. So this is essentially the spending side of the finance department. And then if we go down a little bit further to line 91, which is 20-145, that is the revenue side of the finance department. Those two function hand in hand. Obviously, what we need to bring in and what we need to move out. Personnel are assigned according to their function within the department. And as I said, we're seeing some adjustments between other expenses where the finance department's going down, but the tax collection side is going up. And that's just to more appropriately categorize expenditures that we have during the year. The computer data processing that's sandwiched in between, that belongs to the administrator. He's already spoken about that this morning. We go down to line 106, or if you use the budget line item, it would be 20-150. That is the tax assessment section. It should be noted that there are 4 statutory positions that are required within any municipality, meaning that if you laid every single employee off in the township of Maplewood, you would still have to keep 4 of them by law. 3 of them are seated in the finance department. If we move further down let's see where we've got my next finance issue. So we move down into section 23. So that would be line 227. It would be 23-220-220-203. We're reaching the health benefits portion. We still need to vet that number. You see it's highlighted at 3.1. We are still doing the calculations to make sure that we're accurately reflecting any changes that have been made during the year. Someone got married, someone had a baby. So we're going to need to make sure that that number is accurate before we can take that out of a highlighted to-do list. Below that, the finance department also calculates out the health benefit waivers, and we are also going through that to make sure that we're capturing all the employees who have opted out of the plan but are entitled to a reimbursement for dropping out of the plan with a cap of a maximum $5,000. So we still have some work to do there. We move down, let's see, I'm just scrolling down the budget till I hit the next. So if we go to line 586 in the Excel spreadsheet, or it would be 30-415 if you were using the account number. That is the accumulated leave liability. That is essentially just calculating out what we have already paid out to date and what we, with very little wiggle room for any additional retirements. In the past, we have increased this line item to anticipate retirements during the year. We have historically cut this line item in order to balance our budget, which then forced us to charge any retiring payouts to salary and wages, which sort of messes us up. One of the things that the TC did last year, upon my recommendation, is we've created an additional trust fund for this line item of accumulated absence liability. In theory, if we ever start to catch a break, and in this example, because we spent 70,000, let's say we budgeted 100 for it, and at the end of the year we had 30,000 left over, we would transfer that money into the trust fund, and then in future years it would give us the ability to greatly reduce this as a budgetary line item, because we would have the trust fund to fall back on in order to make any retiree payouts. The next set of lines are essentially utilities. They have all been increased. The water, the fire hydrant, and the water utility, which is a little further down on if you're following along on your spreadsheet, have been what we received as an increase from American Water. They need to go in front of the BPU in order to get that approved. And they have, so it's part of some sort of 5-year plan, I believe, that they have for rate increases. So that's going to reflect some of the change that you're seeing here. Gas and electric has been going up. There's been discussions that we're going to see our electric and gas bills as residents go up. It's certainly going to affect the township as well. So these numbers have been adjusted or increased in order to accommodate the fact that they are going to be higher than usual. We have the phone bills that were taken from historical data of the last 12 months worth of invoices from the phone company. We got our joint meeting, our sewer bill. So this accounts for the full year based on what they billed us out about a month ago. We also received our pension requirement payments, which are due on April 1st. I believe it's already been included in the temporary budget. If it has not, we will put a amendment to you before then so that we can actually pay this out. This is one of the drivers of our budget this year. It has gone up fairly significant in both the public employees retirement system and the police and fire retirement system. Scrolling down, if you're scrolling down, we're hitting the section that is grants. We're treating grants the same way that we have in the past. We will put into the budget whatever we have received to date, because grants typically are budgeted in a fashion that if we're putting down, and I can scroll up here a little bit, Municipal Alliance for $11,669.20. there would also be a revenue item that would be identical to 11,669.20. So the grant section is really just a wash in terms of the budget. Whatever it increased the appropriation side, it's also going to be increased on the revenue side. So it doesn't have an impact upon our tax levy at all. But what we've been doing in the past is a sort of a pay-as-you-go. When we receive the money, we put it in. So whatever is not in this budget will typically get added to the budget by resolution in chapter 159 that you guys, I think we adopted 5 of them last year in order to put the grant money back in. So that would explain why you may see some stuff that's in here, but it's not. It'll eventually get there when we get through the budget cycles that the state issues us. Scrolling down now to the capital improvement fund. This is a really large number, 872 if you're looking at the spreadsheet, 44-901 if you are looking at the account numbers. This $670,000 number represents the entire amount of money that has been requested by department heads for capital projects. We have somewhere around $13 million worth of requests. So obviously, as we trim those requests and set priorities on the projects that we want to do, this $670,000 number is going to go down. Its primary function is to provide the 5% down payment that we need when we introduce a bond ordinance for our capital projects. Just below that, starting at account number 45-920, and there's a whole bunch of different numbers that represent either principal or interest. This section represents our debt service. And as you can see, this is another one of the large drivers that we have in our budget. We initially had paid or had budgeted $6.7 million last year. We only spent $6.4 million because we did the refunding bond last year, and we also issued a new bond last year. And so that produced a savings in 2021 for us, clearly to our advantage. This is the year that we're picking up some of those new revenue items. And so you can see that from a budget perspective, we went from $6.7 million to $7.1 million. It should be noted that in 2023, we will be retiring. This is the last year of our payments on 2 of our bonds, and we should see a reduction in this line item in 2023 of $2 million. So next year is going to be a whole lot easier in terms of having to deal with what we have on a budget perspective. But for this year, this is our statutory requirement. It should also be noted that this debt service and the pensions that came out above and the capital improvement fund that was also just spoken about are all outside cap levies. So in other words, these 3 items will essentially, when people say, hey, I thought you had a 2% cap, but you guys went up 3%. Why is that? These items are outside the cap and are required, statutorily required to be raised. The state has a distinct interest in making sure municipalities aren't defaulting on their debt. And so for that reason, they allow us to raise whatever we need to raise. So while these items are certainly a budget driver from a levy perspective, they won't be associated with the cap. However, they obviously will be associated with the pain that comes with a tax bill that we send out to people. The last item that we have on here, which is also highlighted, is the reserve for uncollected taxes. Until we can calculate out what our budget is going to look like and also calculate out what our tax collection was last year, this number will be altered. There are 2 methods that are approved by a state statute for utilizing this. As the time draws near, we will calculate out both calculations and determine which one would be the smaller number to plug in here. As a placeholder, we're anticipating that we're probably going to land somewhere around $1.5 million for the reserve for uncollected taxes. So that pretty much covers what we have for finance. Happy to answer questions.
Ooh, that was fast.
Jerry, I told Jerry I can talk about finance stuff till you guys fall asleep or 30 minutes. And Jerry said, no, cut it quicker.
Yeah, it's a little bit more truncated than I would have liked, but I'm going to open the floor.
Yeah, I just want to follow up on the last thing you talked about. You anticipate 1.5 million. Last year was 1.2 million for uncollected taxes. So I'm wondering why you're anticipating 300 more.
So the Reserve for Uncollected Taxes, or the acronym of RUT, is a function of what our tax collection was last year and what our budget is going to be this year. And so then we need to use that percentage in order to determine how much money we need to plug into our budget to anticipate people not paying us taxes, because under the law, we are required to send the full 100% to the county, and we're required to send the full 100% to the school board. But if we don't collect a full 100%, essentially we're sending money that we never got, and we're covering the difference for both the county and the school district. And so for that reason, the state has us plug this number in to make sure that there's going to be enough money to be able to send over to the school district and to send over to the county.
Right.
So until we actually determine what our budget is going to be, and this budget has gone up. And so naturally, if the budget is increased from last year to this year, the Reserve for Uncollected Taxes is likewise going to follow that increase and go up as well. That number is also calculated based on if we just tried to adopt this budget as presented, and they are raw data numbers. So obviously that's going to go down. So I believe that the $1.5 million is going to go down from what we have in there, but based on the figures that we have here right now, the 1.5 is what we would be required to raise in order to meet our needs.
And just to add to that, it's not, or to clarify that, it's not the CFO or administration picking that figure. That figure gets calculated by the items that are already end up in the budget, such as the amount to be raised by taxes, assessed value, and all that stuff. So it's not a number we come up with. It's a number that's developed based on the final numbers that we all end up agreeing on.
Mr. Kaloje, what is a tax point now in revenue?
I have not had an opportunity to calculate out the tax point in terms of revenue, but gosh, you know what? Let me bring up a spreadsheet, take a look at where we were last year.
The 347 or 360, I don't have it from either, but.
That sounds like what we talked about last year, but.
Yeah, something like that.
Unfortunately, right now, what I have stuck in my head is the average assessed value of a home, and our assessed values have gone up. A shout out to our tax assessor, who is the DC made a decision to hire a full-time tax assessor a year ago, and that has certainly paid dividends for us in terms of him keeping up with the valuation of our properties and adding on new revenue. In fact, we anticipate that we're going to see about $120,000 in new revenue this year, which will go into our revenue calculations with the budget and our levy cap calculation because of the work that he's been doing.
Absolutely.
What is the average assessed value of a home now?
I'd have to, again, I'm looking at old numbers because I'm down a staff member right now. So we're doing our best to just keep head above water. But it'll likely move up, but not dramatically. 2 years ago, it was at somewhere around 497. This year, it was at somewhere around 500. My guess is we will probably see it landing at somewhere around 502 in this year's average assessed home.
And I think you reported earlier in memos throughout the year that tax appeals have gone down. Is that right? Do I remember that correctly?
Tax appeals have been reduced. We have also seen a decent amount of settlement for some of the state court tax appeals that we have going on. So that whole $120,000 in revenue that we have coming in additionally is a net number. So the number was actually higher based on the tax appeals. It obviously took some of that money out of the equation. And so the 120 is where we landed for the year. But yes, we're starting to clean up a lot of the books. Our biggest concern right now, talking to Mr. DeCourt, our assessor, is that our ratio has sunk into the 80s. Just a couple of years ago, we were in the 90s. And the county typically, when the ratio hits 85%, requires a town to do a reval. And so I had said to Mr. DeCourt, whatever you can do to keep us from doing a reval until we finish paying off the reval that we just had started paying back in 2017, that would be greatly appreciated. And true to his word, he was able to achieve that goal. Our problem is because we share a school district with South Orange, and South Orange's ratio is below 85%. Our concern is that because we need to go together, because of that shared school district, that if South Orange gets ordered to do a reval, we're going to get ordered to do a reval at the same time, even if our ratio is above 85%. So I know that is one of our concerns that we're working hard on. The issue is that the real estate market in Maplewood is booming, and houses are going for significantly higher than they used to, and those sale prices wind up hurting us in terms of that ratio number.
So I'm still looking to answer Deputy Mayor DeLuca's question.
Yep, we are still working on that.
We derailed you there a little bit.
That's okay. Here's our tax rate, here's a portion, value, gain, loss. All right, so now I'm looking at the wrong table, but I'm getting closer. Expenses. Where is my tax point? Here we go.
And I see that we have with us now.
Who do we have with us now, Mayor?
We have both Caesar and Paul.
All right, so why don't we switch over to them while I search some documents so that everyone's not staring at me looking through my
Well,
files.
actually, I think we should stay.
Yeah, okay.
Not necessarily for that number, that can come back, but there are probably other questions. during
Oh,
finance.
yeah, that makes sense.
Open floor.
Just real quick, and this may, be picky, it just sounds, line on the spreadsheet 87, otherwise 140-207. Software, it's quite a big jump for $98,000 as opposed to, 30 something. The highest before was 2 years ago, or at 57 in actual. So we're budgeting 3 times what we usually budget for this line. And I apologize if that's not even yours because you went so fast, I'm not even sure why.
No, my apologies. Yes, this section that is for IT is in administration. I could answer the question that we have purchased software that is going to help with this budget data. We are in the process of implementing it. And so that is a part of the reason for the significant increase. And I think we also have switched from SDL to some other vendors. So I'm assuming that that's why Mr. Jimes budgeted additional funding here.
SDL should be a line item under community development.
Yeah, that doesn't help me because there's no, if there were separate tabs, it would be easier to do that, but they're not. It's just one long spreadsheet. So it's hard to, and I know the software probably doesn't let you like highlight what the categories are, but when we're jumping around, it's tough. So I need a number or a line item for that.
But as the CFO said, it was the budgetary software that was approved in the IT plan a while back makes up a significant portion of that. Some of what I think is going to be offset by the reduction that we have in the actual annual IT contract. So I think you're going to see a break even there when all said and done.
And is that number expected to stay at that 98, or is that just until we purchase what we need?
That was the first year in the server year. I think that will probably decrease in the subsequent years. I'm sorry, the first year of the service contract, and then the first year of any initial launching that we had to do.
Based on the invoice that they just sent us, it would appear that they're going to be charging us somewhere around $40,000 a year for the next 3 years. They wanted to get front loaded, so we needed to explain to them that in New Jersey we can't prepay for 23 and 24. But they did invoice us for 23 and 24 as well. So we have an idea of where they're looking. Perhaps they did that so that we could budget. But it was a fairly steady $40,000 a year for that software.
Mhm.
Any other questions?
Just below that, the tax and sewer collection salary, I know it's salaries, but it's, again, it's quite a bit more than the past couple of years.
Which one is that one?
That would be line item 2-01 20-140. If you're using the Excel, or 145 rather, if you're using the Excel spreadsheet, that would be 93. It includes one of my personnel requests to address a salary inequity.
Is that additional personnel or replacement personnel?
No, I still have 2 staff members, and we're kind of getting dicey in terms of giving a greater explanation. I would assume we would need to do that in closed session, but no, finance is not requesting any additional personnel. When I started here, we had 9 staff members, and we currently have 6. We are maintaining 6 staff members.
Deputy Mayor DeLuca, Committee Member Kripe.
Oh, wait, I can't tell which. Sorry, I'm trying to see which category it's under and whether or not it's this one, but I don't think it is. You don't do the seed and consultants and redevelopment attorney. That's under where? Administration or finance? Or community services?
That would be, seat is under administration.
Okay, so I know we did administration before, but again, it's hard to tell where it's under. We're budgeting 25,000 for seed consultants. Why? Normally it's like 15,000 and we hardly ever spend it. So why are we budgeting so much more? That's line 170-203 or 150 on the spreadsheet.
We either have approved or you will be approving at your next regular meeting a planner for some sort of redevelopment project, 7 West Parker or something like that. So a large chunk of that money is being utilized for that redevelopment plan.
Is that where it's always come from? Because we've had redevelopment planners before.
This is where I don't know where it's always come from, but this is where it's coming from this year.
Line item 170 also, I don't believe is in administration. I think that might be under community development.
Yeah.
Because
yes.
we're only 100, 105, and 120.
And that's what it says in the spreadsheet. Yep, it's community development.
That's
Okay. Mr. Palma is going to argue that it should be administration, but we can figure that out when we get there.
Yeah, I would agree with her. Just tough.
Okay, any questions, Mr. McGeehee? Before we move on? Okay.
Good.
Go ahead, sir.
I'm good. I was looking for the numbers from last year. I couldn't find them.
I'm searching as well, so I will have that information before we leave today.
Yeah, I found Mr. Schuster's documents where he talked about the increase in tax points by 0.10 basis points, but not anything else. We should move on, Mayor.
Let's move on then. Thank you, Mr. Kalonji. I believe we have both Mr. Riccardi and Mr. Kittner in the waiting room over on the attendee side, right? We're moving over.
Yes, they're being moved now.
Thank you. Welcome, gentlemen.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
You are up next, Public Works.
It's still morning, Paul.
Well, good morning. Yes, Mayor, thank you very much. Paul Kittner, Township Engineer and Director of Public Works. I'm accompanied by Cesar Riccardi, Superintendent of Public Works as well. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, walk us through your budget, Mr. Kittner.
Okay, so do you want to start with capital or do you want to start with operating?
Let's start with operating for Public Works.
Okay. So I believe our operating starts at 290, 290, 100. Actually 101. And, that's streets and roads. We had some people who actually retired or left. And as a result, that budget line item is lower. Do you want me to go through line by line or just to summarize?
We can go through line by line and then we can ask questions.
Okay. 102, seasonal employees is maintained at 12,000. 106, clothing allowance. It's a slight increase to 3,250. Streets and roads overtime, we had put down a budget of 75,000. Last year, we appropriated 90,000. And we used 91,000. That's primarily because of Tropical Storm Ida. 201, repairs to equipment. We maintain 25,500. Small tools and supplies, 11,500. Construction repair materials, 7,000. That's consistent with what we've used in past, but it's 1,000 less than last year that we're requesting. Storm cleanup overtime, we put down 15,000. We believe that's necessary because the weather patterns have been more intense as time goes on. So that's up 5,000. Repairs to equipment, 5,000 is consistent with last year. Road, salt and sand, 125,000. That's up slightly from last year of 110,000. That's to accommodate expected increases in salt from supply issues and also the more intense weather patterns that we've experienced. Contractual services are 15,000. Last year was 10,000. Slight increase simply because things are costing more money. Moving on to sewer utilities. In terms of salaries, that is up quite substantially, but that's because we're adding a third person. We're shifting a vacancy that we've discovered at DPW, and we're moving that vacancy into utilities. So that's why that's increased.
So, Mr. Kittner, in light of the fact that you have a lot of line items here, how about we switch to your highlighting some of the things you want to highlight, and then the committee can ask questions about specific line items after you're finished.
Absolutely, Mayor. So essentially, what we've tried to do is maintain a realistic balanced budget while anticipating, the realities of what we're experiencing every day, which are cost increases. Moving on to administration, we're looking to add an assistant to assist our assistant right now. So there's an increase in that line item. But given the phone calls, the new tree ordinance, and some of the other measures that we're taking on, I think it's justified and there's precedent for doing that. Same thing. I'm sorry, was there a question?
No, we're going to do questions at the end, Paul. Proceed.
Okay. So in terms of shade tree plants, in 2021, we planted 275 trees. I'd like to try to get that number increased to roughly 350. And to do that, we're going to need to increase our budget from 45,000 to 60,000. We've had some turnover in DPW. Some people retired, some people left. And there's been, some additional people that we've hired, and we've tried to maintain our staff to provide that level of service for the residents of Maplewood Township. Moving on to recycling, there has been an increase in the cost of recycling. Unfortunately, with everything else, we break our recycling up to two phases. One is the pickup, and the other is the marketing, and both of which have increased. We are working with South Orange to try to team up and perhaps come up with a better plan to reduce those costs. So we may have better news in 2023. Moving on to buildings and grounds. That's pretty consistent with last year, aside from salaries. And we're looking to add 2 custodians, which are very necessary, A, due to COVID, and B, what we'd like to do is take some of the third-party contracted work, reduce that, and hire in-house 2 additional custodians. So that would actually reduce the line item for outside services, which is, I believe it's janitorial supplies and services, 310,238. We could reduce that number substantially. Moving on to automotive, the numbers are fairly consistent. Actually, it's a little less than what was requested last year. Moving on to Jitney, 365, 365. That number, there are some increases there, and that's because the Jitney service was not running full-time last year, and it wasn't running full-time in 2020 either. But for us to provide the service we need for the residents, we entered those numbers that we believe are necessary. Parks and playgrounds, I would say that is also fairly consistent. There are some increases. For starters, D-Hart Organic Field, we're asking for some additional monies so that we can perform additional work on that field this year. And we're hopeful that that will turn out a better result for the field. So those are essentially the operating expenses. If anybody has any questions, Caesar and I would be happy to entertain that now.
Yep, I'm going to open the floor. Questions for operating?
I have a couple.
Sure.
For the recycling disposal, is that what the contract is, 400? It's line 306, 207.
I believe the marketing side came in just under the 400 number. It's like 375, but we added a little, and basically
the pickup was 375, but the
Well,
marketing also?
yeah, the marketing almost mirrored the pickup. It was
Oh, all right.
fairly high. Now, I will say with marketing, we don't anticipate that that's actually going to be the true cost, because as you know, there is a credit that we receive, and that's from the actual material that gets recycled, the value of it.
And those values have gone up this year.
They've gone up tremendously. Mixed paper and cardboard, it's gone up tremendously.
Yeah, so hopefully we can anticipate a lot more revenue on that one for this year.
Yes, I would hope so. And hopefully with this RFP that we're working on with South Orange next year, we'll see a cheaper price as well.
The line 308, 206, traffic light maintenance. What's that in anticipation of? Because it's, higher than, we actually spent in the, significantly higher. We're budgeting 20 and we spend about 3,000. We don't have that many traffic lights that we control. So.
We have, where do you see that, Ms. Adams?
I'm sorry, 308-206.
Oh, I see it.
We keep budgeting 20,000, but we spend about $3,000. And we don't, like I said, most of the lights in town are county.
So we control about 5 or 6 signals, sets of traffic signals in the township. And actually in 2019, we used 20,689. So if you'd like to reduce that number, we probably could shave off something on that number, but I wouldn't reduce it significantly, because that's, in case something really happens, we have a shortage or there's an issue, that provides us some funds to address it.
Okay, there was something else. I'm just trying to scroll to see where my highlight is. I'm sorry. You can come back to me, Mayor,
Okay.
while I look.
Other questions?
Yeah, let me go. So line item 290, 291, 202, road salt and sand. So I'm seeing an increase here of 34,000. Is that because of inflation?
Committee member McGahey,
290, 291, 202, your last 9 digits. It's up 34,000 and change.
yes.
The actual and requested.
So that's, I believe, and perhaps our CFO can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that was there a balance that was left over from last year that was added to this year's budget? Perhaps our CFO can clarify that.
All right, my apologies. We were looking at which line item?
290, 291, 202, last 9 digits.
291 is storm emergency funding cleanup. When I first got here, we had depleted our storm trust completely and had no ability to weather any kind of unexpected storms or anything above budget. So we have begun to, let me get back to 26 here, my apologies. We have begun to rebuild that trust fund. So the funding for the road and salt has been increased just based on what we need. What we did in last year's budget is we had a balance of roughly 20,000 that was left in these line items, and we used that and transferred it over into the trust fund. So we've gotten our trust fund to the point where it is a little healthier than it was when I first started here in 2018. So it's not as, if we want to reduce this line item, we can reduce this line item because we actually have a security blanket, so to speak, if indeed it winds up going up higher than what we anticipated. But I'm sure DPW can speak larger to some of the issues that we had, but I know that this probably deals with a lot of storms that we had that may not have necessarily been plowing, but may have been salting. I think at the last DH meeting, Caesar had reported that we used up half our silo, I think, on the last storm that we just had. But all that being said, I would assume that they're budgeting based on this is hopefully a little more than what we need, and if that's the case, we would move that over into the trust so that in future years we can significantly reduce this line item, knowing that we have money set aside to address any storms that may or may not occur.
Sounds noted. I think you should flag it, and then as you start to kind of taper off, that might be one line you might want to look at to help balance.
Committee Member McGahey, thank you.
No worries. Mayor, floor is yours.
Thank you. Other questions?
Yeah, the couple things I remembered, the arborist, we have at 45,000 and then,
What's the item?
oh, I'm sorry, 302-207, the spreadsheet number 400. I don't want to get into, personnel stuff, but it's 1 day a week.
If I could speak to that, Ms. Adams. Our arborist, he comes in 1 day a week, but it's a little bit more than our other arborist was. That's why. That's the issue.
Okay, but it was in 2020. Well, we don't have the historical information going back. I don't know why.
But he does come in for a multitude of trees now because of the new ordinance.
Right.
It's just it's evolved a little bit different now.
Okay. But and to the history there that's missing from the spreadsheet, CFO, there's also a lot of history missing from the jitney section.
Yeah, the state required us to change the numbers we were using when we had our last state audited budget 2 years ago. Typically, the way this process works is every 3 years we have to have the state review our budget and adopt it. And in this particular case, because we adopted the average revenues last year, they got a second bite at the apple. So for 2 years in a row, we have had the state review our budget. And when they do that, they do crazy things like this, where they make us change the account numbers to match what they want it to match. And so when that occurs, we lose the historical data. The historical data is still there, but the way this system populates the spreadsheet, it doesn't recognize anything because the account number didn't exist in those particular years. So ultimately, one of our goals in the finance department is to move this going back past years, so that ultimately we will have at our fingertips historical data that'll be easier to follow. But that's the reason why we're seeing if you're seeing blanks next to a line item, it's not because it's something that we started doing new. It's because of the way the state's making us account for how we spend that money.
Okay, so are you saying that, you know, like when we're not in the heat of budget season, your department will find the time to manually populate that since the account numbers are different?
Yes, our goal is to, once we have it where we need in the current year, our goal is to then go back and make the adjustments to the account numbers in the prior years so that everything gets pulled back together and we can see numbers more readily.
Okay.
Ms. Adams, if I could also add, excuse me, I'm sorry. You know, part of the new tree ordinance, the fees were also increased, and you know, I believe those fees go into a general fund. You know, or Joe, Mr. Blojak, if you want to correct me, you can, but I'm not sure it directly offsets this line item, but certainly the net cost is partially offset from the additional fees that are taken in from the new tree permit ordinance that was passed.
So that would be correct, Mr. Kittner. In theory, it offsets it. However, based on municipal finance, that money actually drops into general revenue. So it's not a penny for penny, the same way it would be for, say, the pool utility, which is a standalone, or recreation. Actually, recreation is also going into the general fund. We have very few items that go penny to penny, but it is something that we review on an annual basis to see, all right, the building department's costing us $1 million, but between permits, fees, and inspections, they brought in, you know, $900,000 so that we know that it's a $100,000 expenditure. We do that for the other line items in your budget as well, correct?
Thank you.
Any other questions for operating? Great. Mr. Kittner, can we move over to your capital requests?
Yes, Mayor. Starting with 2201, vehicle and equipment purchase. We're asking for a number of different vehicles that in totality seems like a pretty big number. And, you know, we'll work with whatever budget the committee decides is appropriate for our department. I would like to thank the committee for being generous in working with the DPW and replenishing some of our equipment in the last 2 to 3 years. You know, it really has made a tremendous difference investing in vehicles and the infrastructure, giving our staff the tools they need to work and do their jobs during emergency times, you know, whether it's a tropical storm or whether it's a snowstorm. This makes such a difference in our ability to fight these events. So I just wanted to thank the committee personally. And I think Mr. Riccardi feels the same way. Starting at number 1, the triaxle dump truck. That's needed for recycling and hauling materials to Newark. Our current truck, the truck it would be replacing is from 1991. Well, in most cases, in most DPW garages, trucks are expected to last 12, at the latest 15 years. We have many trucks that have exceeded 25 years. Moving on to the single axle 4x4 large body dump truck with a snowplow and spreader. That's obviously needed, the 4x4 truck for the hills in our township. We have 2 on order now. They're expected to get delivered in April. The problem is when we place an order, if we did it today, we're not going to see these vehicles for at least a year, if not 14 or 15 months from now. So this is the need. This is the reason we're trying to replace these vehicles now. Communication radios. Those are essential for us communicating with fire and police. You know, right now we use cell phones. So that's something that we would like. Wheel loader with snowplow and a bucket and accessories. Those are also very important. We use them all year long, snow removal, leaves, and they're actually used as emergency vehicles as well. Just during Tropical Storm Ida, we used one of these vehicles to save a police officer who was stranded on the hood of his car because the waters were going so high in the East Branch of the roadway. Next vehicle is a spider lift. They call it a spider lift. It would allow our staff to go 90 feet in the air and trim branches. The current model we have is actually from 2002 and only goes to 55 feet. The next vehicle is a pickup truck with a 4x4 pickup truck with the snowplow and accessories. The current truck it'll be replacing is out of commission. The next line item we placed as a bookend, so to speak, and I think we're flexible on this, but these are the new electric pickup trucks offered by Ford. I believe administration, put a nominal deposit down and save the spot, so to speak, in the delivery of these vehicles. I don't know when they're going to be available, given all the shortages. I don't know if they're going to be ready this year or next, but we put down 5 of them, not just for our department, but for all the departments in the township. And this would coincide with the infrastructure upgrades that we're making throughout the whole township for electric vehicles. The next item is a mason dump with snowplow and accessories. Those trucks are used all year long, and I consider them essential. The next vehicle is a utility truck with a bucket. Again, this is replacing an older truck, and the bucket in these smaller vehicles allow us to access utility poles or access, heights that are less than 30 feet. The next item is a wood chipper or grinder for tree processing. That's pretty self-explanatory. We have a lot of trees and we need the equipment to grind that material up. The next item is a trailer mounted leaf vacuum that would assist with our leaf pickup operations. It would make it more efficient. Okay, and by the way, I included those sub costs on each of these items for you. The next item is a hot box asphalt repair trailer. We have one now, but it's very large and unruly. This one would be smaller. If we are flexible with that item. It's not, I don't consider that to be an essential item. The next item is an articulated tractor. We bought one last year and we absolutely love it. It works fantastic. So that cost is actually not $20,700. I would change that line item to $40,000. Okay. So that's the vehicles and equipment purchases. With this equipment, we fight storms, we address emergency situations, and we do the maintenance of the township. Does anyone have any questions on that?
Oh, keep moving.
Okay, moving on to 2202, buildings and grounds maintenance. The first item I put down was miscellaneous building repairs. And I put a balance of $50,000. And that's for unforeseen situations and circumstances. Maybe a roof needs repairing, or maybe masonry needs to be repaired. It's a general fund which would allow me to make repairs, Mr. Riccardi and I, as necessary. The next item was a leftover from last year's budget. A carryover was the DPW roof at $250,000. We have a large building, it's expensive, but it really it's the original roof and it really is beyond its life expectancy. The next item is the police department uninterrupted power supply backup system. This is going to become part of an insurance claim, or already is, I should say. The police building is operating on a backup system. We need to upgrade it and replace it. It was damaged by a contractor of ours. And unfortunately, with the insurance, I believe it's a reimbursement. So that's why I added that amount. Also with the police building are boilers. We're recommending replacing both of them at the cost of $350,000. They have been problematic for quite some time. They are the LEED certified green boilers, low condensing boilers, high efficiency, and they're expensive. But I would recommend replacing them at this time. I think they're beyond their life expectancy. The next item is the municipal pool security system, fire and cameras. I already had budget from last year. You can strike that. That was $25,000. The next item was the bird door fire sprinkler upgrades. So last year we added an alarm system for the fire suppression And this year, we'd like to include the actual sprinklers for that building. I reflected that cost at the time. I put a placeholder of 30,000, but that's not accurate. Based on quotes that we've received, it's going to be between 100 and 120. Part of that's due to the supply shortages, not being able to, get pipe and the increased cost associated with that. So I would budget at least $100,000 for the fire suppression system for Bergdorf. The next item is the Bergdorf gutter upgrades. That building, in the past, when we've done gutter upgrades, we've used copper gutters. It's, in kind with the architecture of the building, and we'd recommend continuing that. That cost is not $15,000. Again, a placeholder. I think that's closer to $50,000 for the whole building. The next item is something that was forced upon the township, I should say, by New Jersey American Water, and that is these backflow preventers for the municipal water supply. All of our buildings need these backflow preventers. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's a requirement from the BPU, and New Jersey American Water is asking that all the municipalities upgrade their buildings. So that is actually fairly costly. That's $154,000. That's our estimate. And we've been in the process of securing quotes. It's also time sensitive. They've given us a deadline for that, I believe, of 6 months. Roof repair for 106 Burnett, that's the senior center. I had down a placeholder of 30,000. After talking with staff, we recommend doing the whole roof. That was only a part of the roof, and that would be $60,000. So that concludes our request for buildings and grounds. If there's no questions, there are some OSTF requests. I don't know if we address that now. And there's also some personnel requests for an office assistant and 2 custodians.
Mr. Kittner, I have a couple of things I wanted to summarize. I just want to make sure that I got them correctly as you went through your capital requests, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
The hot box asphalt repair trailer at $69,900. You said that could be optional for this year. Is that right?
Absolutely, Mayor. I think that's an optional thing. It would help our operations in terms of filling potholes, but I don't think it's necessary. It's not 100% necessary.
The tractor with ball field attachments, that was budgeted at $21,700 should actually be $40,000. Yes.
Yes, and that is a very good piece of equipment, and we use it tremendously.
Okay. And we are striking the full security system because you already have that's previously funded at $25,000. Yes.
Yes, Mayor. It's a redundant line item.
And did I hear you correctly about the Bergdorf fire sprinklers? That should be funded at $100,000, not $30,000.
Correct.
And does that include 100 on top of the 50 that was previously funded for this?
The 50 that was previously funded was used for the actual electronics and the alarm system, which was that was phase 1. This is a phase 2 approach, which is actually bringing in the sprinklers to the building, to that section of the building, I should say.
Okay. Mr. Jimes, did you catch that summary?
Yes, I did. We talked about this yesterday as well. Director,
Today, I will summarize the items that we need to adjust or strike. This is not TC decisions, just what was presented by the department heads themselves. Okay, any questions? I open the floor for capital. Mr. McGehee.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Kittner, arguably this is a robust list and we appreciate the effort that went into it. An exercise that I'd be interested in seeing, I hope my colleagues would agree, is, and to be honest here, knowing that obviously we're not going to be able to fulfill all these capital requests. But could you go back and stack rank them for us? I would like to see you as the expert and Caesar the expert to go back and say, here's what I gotta have, here's what I love to have, and here's what's nice to have. Because I could look at the prices and the prices are what they are. Some have more sticker shock than others, but I'm more concerned about what is the most critical pieces here that you need like yesterday? And I know you could say that maybe all of them are like yesterday, but I mean, really doing that critical analysis and then coming back to us and saying, here's the 3 levels of gotta have it, love to have it, would like to have it. Does that make sense?
Committee member McGahey, absolutely, it does make sense, and we've done that in prior years. I mean, I'm actually prepared to go through that now if you'd like. We could go through it. Or
Let's do it. Let's really, because I'm looking at the list and it says robust, but like I'd love to, well, I can print it out, but I'd love to like say, okay, this is the ones, and then focus there. I mean, I will say that my eyebrow went up when I saw the roof repair, because obviously we need to, I mean, that's our facility, so that may be what we need to do. But I'll leave it to you and my colleagues. I will take notes and we'll go from there. And Bailey, maybe you should take notes on the sheet, and then that way, when we get the notes, we can kind of make sure our notes are accurate with what Mr. Kittner and Mr. Riccardi are going to tell us.
So looking at this list, I would say 1 through 6 is certainly essential. And I did, Mr. Riccardi and I ranked them in terms of a more or less a priority numbering. Number 7, I do not consider essential. Okay, and I'm not sure that vehicle is even going to be available this year based on the supply shortages and delays, which is the electric pickups. The 8th item, I think, is essential. Number 9, I do not think is essential. That's something we, if money is an issue, then I certainly think we consider deferring that to next year. Number 10 is not essential, but I think it's important. Mr. Riccardi, tell me if you disagree.
Well, I disagree with that one. I think it is. Number 12 is not essential.
Okay. I agree with number 12. That's not essential either, the hot box, as we indicated before. So number 10, I'll revise my answer. I'll say, yes, that is important, borderline essential. The trailer mounted leaf vacuum, how would you quantify that, Mr. Riccardi?
I would love to have that thing. It'd be very ideal to have for the swales because it's easier to pick up, but it needs something needs to be taken out that we can take that one out as well.
Okay. The articulating tractor, I would highly recommend getting that. I wouldn't say it's essential. We have backup equipment, but I think it's a very good piece of equipment. And certainly the mower deck for the existing tractor that we do have, I think that it's only $5,000. I think that's something that we absolutely should get because we're going to use that for the DeHart organic field in terms of mowing. The tractor's lighter and has a lighter footprint. So I would recommend that.
And if I may, I believe number 5, we would love to have that, but I really don't think it's essential.
Gentlemen, I'm sorry, I'm going to jump in here because I'm getting a little frustrated. Excuse me, but your number 1 and your number 5 and your number 7 and your number 8 is not my number 5, my number 7, my number 8, and the updated capital sheet for DPW. So if you wouldn't mind starting from the beginning, indicating the item itself, its name, not the number.
Okay, Mayor, our apologies. We may be working off of a different sheet, but I'll run through this right now. The triaxle dump truck, triaxle truck is essential. The single axle 4x4 large body dump truck with snowplow, that's essential. The upgrade of communications, I believe, is essential with radios. The wheel loader with snowplow and 5 cubic yard bucket, that's essential. The spider lift is important, but not essential. The F-250 pickup truck electric with snowplow and accessories. The F-250 pickup truck with 4x4 snowplow and accessories is essential. The F-150 electric pickup, 5 of them are not essential. The Mason dump pickup truck with snowplow and accessories, I think is essential. The utility truck with bucket is not essential. The wood chipper grinder for tree processing is essential. The trailer mounted leaf vacuum is not essential. The hot box asphalt repair trailer is not essential. The articulating tractor, although not essential, is a very good piece of equipment. I'd recommend that. And the mower deck with existing Ventrac tractor is essential.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Okay, unless there's any questions, we're going to move over to open space trust funds.
I just have one about the 5 trucks. I appreciate the electric part, but how many pickup trucks do we have now? I mean, in use?
Mr. Riccardi, do you have that list of pickup trucks?
Because I'm just wondering why you would even ask for 5, like all at one time.
Well, I think as I indicated before, Ms. Adams, this is not just for DPW. We'd also be sharing with other members, other departments. You know, admin may get one, recreation may get one. You know, that was the concept of it. Police could even get one, perhaps. It's something that we would work out with administration, but that was the thought behind it. It was trying to get a placeholder for that new technology moving to EV as quickly as we could.
Yeah, that I'm all for. I just wonder if, like, administration doesn't need a pickup truck. They can use
of course,
a small car. So I guess I would just adjust that list to how many actual trucks are needed, and that might be DPW and police. Whereas I think a little refinement on that would be helpful.
Thank you. We'll look at that.
Okay, so let's go to OSTF.
Mayor, thank you. Our first request is for essentially our postgraduate landscape consultant and summer intern. I don't believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Kolojak, but I think this number has not changed from the last couple of years that I recall. It's been consistent. So it's a nominal amount. They do a tremendous amount of work. And I think supporting postgraduate work and internships is important in our township. I'd recommend moving forward with that. The next item is an ash borer inoculation for ash trees. This is, of course, to combat the ash borer beetle. Mr. Riccardi, do you want to speak any more about this line item, this request?
Well, it's a request that we do, bi-yearly. So it's needed and to, preserve our ash trees.
And I believe that is all of the OSTF requests, Mayor. Did I miss one?
Well, we have on the list, includes the Memorial Park Bridge restoration at 350.
So that was part of engineering, and I think we're going to discuss that next week.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. Sorry. My bad. The intern is under engineering as well, just so you know, or at least on our list.
That's a typo. I will fix it.
Okay, any questions about OSTF?
Just so you know, Mayor, the OSTF committee has not met yet to look at requests. So part of that is because the chair of that committee didn't receive any of it. And so I think he's planning on trying to schedule a couple meetings over the next week or two.
I spoke with him yesterday and they're having a meeting Thursday evening. He's going to get a budget with a narrative over to us before end of day Friday so that there's time to review it before Saturday, and he'll be in attendance next week.
Okay. What do we have up next? It's on my agenda here. I think that concludes Public Works, does it not? Yep. Any final remarks?
Mayor, I'd just like to say that, we'll work with the wisdom of the committee. Any budget that you feel is appropriate for our line items, we'll make it the very best that we can. We're very proud of our accomplishments back in 2021, whether it was responding to Tropical Storm Ida or, obtaining FEMA funding from Hurricane Isaias in 2020, implementing, community food bank shed, doing overlays of various streets, using our all of our programs that we do on an annual basis, such as spring rakeout and leaf cleanup, shredded day, bulk pickup, and of course our ongoing work with our ball fields and parks. So, on behalf of DPW, our employees take a lot of pride in what we do. And we're just thankful that the committee gives us so much support. So we
Thank you, Mr. Kittner. We're proud of our DPW team. You make sure that they know that as well. And thank you for your time today. I'm sorry that you have to come back next week. Again, I'm not really sure why we separated two departments that are now one department in this manner, but we will make sure that that doesn't happen again. And we'll see you next Saturday.
It's not a problem, Mayor. It's our pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we ready to move on to community services, or do we need 5?
She's jumping on in a second. I just talked to her.
Okay, great.
Hey, Missy.
Hi. How are you guys?
Welcome, Ms. Mancuso. Thank you. A little bit ahead of schedule.
I know, I see that.
Thank you for making yourself available so quickly, coming in.
I hope everybody's not hungry and missing lunch now.
So I think we can get started if you walk us through your operating side.
Okay, sounds good. Starting with community services then, right?
Yep.
That sounds good. Okay. And then are we going, I didn't watch everybody else. Are we going line by line or just questions?
Just highlight things that you want to highlight, and then we'll open the floor for questions about any specific lines.
Okay, that works for me.
And also call out the number because we're all on one spreadsheet instead of tabs.
The account number? Okay.
Yeah, like the last 6 digits.
Okay, cool. I tried to keep pretty much everything steady, but where you see some jumps, just generally speaking, or when we're going back more to like 2019 times, is why there's some increases in a bunch of things. So that's just generally, 2020, we did camp, we did pool, we executed things, but mostly at a scaled back or a delayed start type situation. So we didn't have either full seasons or full outgoes. So that's where some of the increases are if you're just looking at numbers jumping. So under attendance, which is, you want me to give the 103 ending at the top?
We just need to know where it is on the spreadsheet. So we either need the, for your part, like the last 6 numbers so that we find it.
All right, so I'll start at 370102. That's camp staff. That one, I'm asking for more than we actually spent last year, only because of the outgo. So last year we did camp, but we only had 50, 60 kids with a smaller group setting. And this year we're really excited to be back to hopefully our normal outgo. We're capping at 120. So that's why we're going back to, we'll need, more counselors and more staff. Down at attendance, 370-103. That is all of our fitness staff and tennis staff and art staff as far as instructors. Oh no, I'm sorry, that's building attendance. The building attendance 103 is low because our buildings were mostly closed. So now we're open, even though we were doing things outside, which we're still going to have a combo of outside events and indoor events. The one I meant with our instructors is program personnel, and that's 370104. Those are our tennis instructors, fitness, art instructors. So I've asked for an increase compared to what we spent, just a little bit to get closer to target of for all of our instruction. Basketball staff 370107 is an increase because we've increased greatly our basketball programming. I think most of us know we now merged with, we took some of South Orange's travel teams. So we have 11 travel teams playing along with our rec programming. So we have just expanded the programming, so that expands the needs for staff. Let's see. The recreation equipment rental, I'm requesting 4,000 because last year you can see in the actual, we actually spent like 3,600, we went over budget in that. So I'm trying to be more realistic with that. The awards, which is 370-204, that correlates with the basketball, because with our basketball program expanding, those are our big trophy distributions and awards distributions for the basketball programming. Same with recreation program supplies, which is 370-206. That is increased a little bit just based on we're going to have even, more programming and more supplies will be needed compared to the past 2 years. And like I was saying before, with camp being back at its normal numbers, the camp supplies 370-207, I'm requesting $43,000 to increase our camp supplies. We're also starting 4 weeks of a basketball camp this year. We have some soccer camps, and we're probably adding a couple more art-based camps. So that's why the supplies are increasing. Senior service programs, 370-208. That I was trying to get back to like the 2019 times when we know we're gathering, we're going on more trips. We've kept everybody active, in 2020 and 2021, but it seems, based on the forecasting for the year will be back to, you know, our level of programming comparative to the 2019. The another increase is 370-212 dues, meeting and seminars. And that is, we have the New Jersey Park and Rec Association Conference. This year, I know 2 full-time employees are going, myself, and we're bringing 3 pool employees to go to a special like boot camp type workshop all day. And been keeping them up to date with the New Jersey aquatic, you know, licensing and laws is important. So everybody's on board. It's not just us full-time staff because they're on site at the pool all the time. So that's mostly an increase for our recreation-based seminar. And then the League of Municipalities, just I attend, but the jump is to allow and kind of open it up to the pool staff and let them know the seriousness and have them get all the proper licensing and CEUs themselves. So it's good for professional development. The leagues 370-214, that is based on basketball. So basketball this year, we had a developmental league and our travel league along with our rec programming. So we are enrolled in a couple different leagues this year. So that's where the league fees come from. All new is Soma 2 Town for All Ages. That is, we all know, was a grant funded position. So we have the wages for the part-time coordinator in salaries and wages, but based on the management team's meetings of what their actual budget looks like, things they need to do their job. This is half of what they requested. So we're hoping on the South Orange side, the plan is they mirror this 15,000. So the total was 30 and we just split it down the middle. And that's all itemized from their technology needs, just a basic things, tents, tables, things like that for them to do their events and day-to-day workflow. Arts and culture, I think just the name changed from cultural affairs. So it's the same basic lump of $60,000, just in different line items. The facility management at 27, the marketing at 8,000, and the cultural programming at 25,000. So it's the same amount, we just juggled within the lines based on how we really been spending it the past couple of years. Any questions?
Open floor for questioning. Any questions? Ms. Craig? I thought I saw you speaking, but you were muted.
And talk to the screen. I'm sorry.
No, it's all fine. I love watching it, actually. Any questions for operating community services? Okay, you did a good job, Ms. Mancuso, of going over all of the changes and the reasons for the changes as you foresee them. And I can confirm that for Soma 2 Towns for All Ages, the $50,000 budget is half of the $30,000 budget, which has been consistently spent when we were funded by Grata, and that South Orange will be adopting the other half of the 15 as a shared service, right? So I have no questions, and if there are no other questions, then we'll go into your capital requests.
Okay. We could do pool or capital, whichever. I think a couple of my capitals are pool based.
Yeah, Mayor, there's line items for pools here, 502, 502, 200. Should we go through those and then go to capital?
That makes sense, because then we can put them all together for capital. That makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. Everybody has a pool, right?
Yep, 501, 501, 100, everyone.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, a lot of, just generally, a lot of the wage increases are based on having a full season, which we're excited about. It'll be the first time since 2019 that we have had a full season. 2020, it was due to COVID restrictions, waiting for guidance. And then last year we had the filtration project. So that truncated our season also. So we're planning on opening Memorial Day weekend. And then full days, 7 days a week, Father's Day weekend, which is what we typically do. And also, of course, everybody knows with minimum wage increasing, so there with a lot of seasonal workers, hourly workers, so there's jumps based on the minimum wage. So generally, like, you know, maintenance, seasonal maintenance, the pool managers, the clerical is the front desk staff, lifeguards, we have, you know, 100 or so lifeguards working, so that is up to 220,000. The clothing allowance went up just due to contract, that's a contractual thing. And then overtime is left in there as a placeholder just in case for the budget. Other expenses, tried to keep them pretty much at a hold. I'm trying to see if anything went up. I think the insurance finance pumps that number in. And equipment maintenance, we have at $23,000. I hope to underspend there. We do have a new system, so we really don't know what to expect. Hopefully not a lot of maintenance is going to be needed. And specialized machinery, we put in pool chemical and gases at $30,000. So that should be our new CO2 cartridge refills, as well as the chlorine that we're going to be using. Clothing and uniforms hopped up a little because all new hires get all new uniforms. They don't reuse things. So I expect to have a lot of new hires with ramping up to full staff for a full season. And I think a lot of the rest finance puts in with the debt service.
Okay, I don't think, are there any questions? Okay, great, then we can go into capital.
Okay, I don't know what order you have. I have 3 requests though for capital. The first is a department vehicle. So, you know, traveling from the pool to multiple camps, to the parks, to the multiple buildings that we run, a department vehicle would be optimal. We're typically all using our personal vehicles. And so that's just convenience, and would be convenient for us to get to all of our events and things, not loading up our personal vehicles to get the job done. And this exact quote is for a hybrid Escape that I think we have some here in the fleet, which I'm not wed to. I just went to the automotive foreman to try to ask a suggestion for an SUV where we could fit some things and get back and forth to the events. Another is the pool plaster application and repairs, which I want to be clear is a total refinish of the training pool, which the floor of the training pool blew out twice last season. So we had to have it closed and kind of like Band-Aids just in those exact hole areas. But it was basically just giving way and people would be swimming and pick up a piece of the floor. So this estimate is to replace that whole floor. And then at the deep end of the main pool, competition pool, there is an area that is really broken up on the bottom, the marcasite. So as far as long-term capital, really the life expectancy is up on the main pool, entire marcasiting job, but that is hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. So this is to basically clean up that end of the pool, 20 foot wide by 70 foot long, getting rid of all the existing layers of plaster, blasting that out, and then reapplying the Diamond Bright, which is in comparison, if we did the whole pool, that would be emptying out the whole pool, blasting out everything, getting it all toted away, and then refinishing it in its entirety. So this is trying to be conservative more on the repair, but then the training pool will be completely redone because it's a smaller pool and achievable. And then the third request is the pool snack bar ice machine. So that proudly was rehabbed. I think he put in the paperwork since like the 80s or something crazy, and is just cannot be fixed anymore. So last year it was not there. We didn't have it, and it was a huge loss. Of course, we leased out the snack bar, and it is in the agreement that we have certain equipment for them to run efficiently. And one of those items is the ice maker.
And then you have a couple personnel requests. We're not going to talk about personnel today, but you do have, you are adding 2 administrative assistant positions. Is that right?
Administrative assistant and a recreation aide, which is like an entry-level rec professional, which usually is a great starting point to do things that we need done, that you get to learn a lot about recreation, hands-on. I mean, I will say Nick started as a rec aide and moved up the ranks, but we have a lot of running around that we need done. Aside from just the building attendant role, people don't realize we're running to multiple buildings to set up an art class and check a roster at an evening show. So it just takes time to go from venue to venue and camp to camp and oversee things as a full-time employee. So our seasonal staff all does great, but we need to add on here. And I think while we've increased, even in COVID times, increased revenues and expanded our programming, we need to expand our team here, because we can't even field the phone calls anymore. And we get a lot of phone calls here, so, which we love. But parents asking about what week is flying camp and who can give an EpiPen. You know, we just have a lot of customer service duties here in this department, because we have a lot of people's like most precious gift, their kids. So we don't want them getting voicemail, or that we're never getting back to email. You know, we want to be able to make ourselves accessible and add to the team.
So the rec aide would be the person who goes to the events to support the events, and the administrative assistant would be someone who's centralized at town hall to cover calls and customer service?
Yes. And the rec aide would take phone calls also, because they have like a hands-on role. But when it comes to, you know, rec recess, a new program we had, we running out there, delivering equipment, following up with vendors, and administrative help would be really great, getting ready for all of our board and committee meetings, because we're involved in a lot of the boards and committees and public focus groups and things like that.
Thank you. Mr. Jimes, why doesn't recreation, maybe I'm missing something, please educate me, but why is it that recreation doesn't have access to the employee vehicles that the rest of the employees at the township have access to? Why are they forced to use their own vehicle?
Yeah, I was totally going there with the question myself, so I'm glad.
There's just a limited amount, to be honest with you. I mean, there's not a large amount for them. I mean, you have 1, 2, 3. I mean, at least 3 people there that could be moving around in a car at the same time in that office. And I know there was, prior to my arrival, there was a discussion, or there was an attempt to have some type of pool access, vehicle pool access, you know, to these vehicles that, just from what was told to me from a few people, didn't really work out well. And there were some staffing issues as to why that didn't work out, that I'll reserve for offline, but it just didn't. Just ultimately, if everybody's moving at one time, there's just not enough vehicles. I mean, you know, my office doesn't ask for one, and I never intend to. But for that reason, you know, I only use my vehicle, you know, for things, and I'm perfectly okay with that. But, you know, and I don't do nearly the amount of driving around town that, you know, the staff and recreation does, from the director down to the aide. So
there's 3 vehicles at town hall that are used by the employees in town hall. Is that what I'm hearing?
There's closer to, I actually have, oh, sorry, it's on my network folder, so I can't pull it up right now. There's closer to like 8 to 10, but that's for rec, finance, community development, engineering, DPW, clerk, admin, like that's everyone. And a lot of the folks who have the vehicles tend to just hang on to them, or they're out on appointments a lot, so they don't return it in between appointments. Like the tax assessor's car, for example, one, it's like barely running, so nobody else even wants to use it, but he keeps it because if he has an appointment in the morning and then in the afternoon, if he brings it back and somebody takes it, he has no way to get there. So that's kind of how it goes for a lot of the folks in community development as well. Like they're in and out so much that they don't bring it back for like the short amount of time they're in the building. So it's out like the full day. So there's really just kind of a de facto assignment of vehicles based off of who has the keys and when.
So
But-
Ms. Burnett, thank you for that color. How many total vehicles are there again?
At town hall, I have an inventory on a spreadsheet, but I have it saved on my network folder, so I can't access it from home.
Right.
But I could send you the numbers and the assignments or like who is currently using the vehicle. Let me actually search my email because I might have a copy there.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I think we just need an overall operational chart of what happens and how we need to know who, I mean, obviously code inspectors are always out and all that kind of stuff, but I agree with Ms. Mancuso that it's, you know, kind of ridiculous that recreation doesn't have a vehicle to take all that, because they're running from facility to facility all spring, summer, fall. At
Yeah,
least.
they've got certain seasons too where it's heavier, so
So
other ones aren't.
if I may interject, so we're supposed to get a hybrid vehicle from Audi. I know that I was working on that when I was mayor, and it's now in Dean's Court, but like we're supposed to get this hybrid vehicle, which is supposed to stay at town hall. And I think that might be a perfect solve here, right? Am I right? So then that way we're good. Okay.
It would be assigned to rec only.
Rec only, and they can take it and go and leave it there. All right.
And I think that's an SUV, right?
It's an SUV. It's an Audi SUV, and it's a hybrid or electric or whatever it is. So yeah.
Right. So that way you'll have the room that you need to throw in a tent.
It'll be correct only for rec. Rec can take it. They can't take it home because that was the agreement. And we're going to get a new one every year. So we'll have it for 2022, then 2023, and 2024.
Well, I would just add, it'd still be helpful to the TC for some sort of understanding of the operations, because at budget time, we get hit with requests for vehicles.
Yeah.
And we don't know what's going on.
Right. I agree with you.
So there isn't a formal check. I mean, there is supposed to be a formal checkout process. And then as Administrator Drimes said, they're supposed to return the keys. During COVID, at some point it was implemented that they weren't going to do that and everyone was going to have one vehicle because of the confined space, people being masked off in it. And so it hasn't been formally reinstated. A lot of people say that, I don't know if it's actually because they're not comfortable with returning to it or because they just want to keep the keys to the car and not come in and out. But people claim that they're not comfortable returning to how it was. So that's also part of the issue. But really the only way that we would be able to do it would be to have like assigned vehicles by department that they have to work out amongst themselves. Because otherwise other departments will have the same issue that Rec's having now when they need to go out, they don't have it. But the only department that has more than one car, I believe, is engineering. And they've requested one for every staff member they have.
Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. I think please internally figure it out and then bring it back to us. We don't need to do it here. We don't need to argue who needs a car, who doesn't, and whether or not somebody's comfortable going back to sharing keys. Again, irrelevant at the moment. So
Yeah, it's a vehicle utilization plan, and let's talk about it. But I want to give committee member Cripe an opportunity. She had a suggestion by private chat to me, and I want her to have the opportunity to voice it.
Yeah, while we were discussing the DPW's request for the electric F-150s, and one of them, I remember hearing him say something like, well, we can make these available for other departments. Could one of them be earmarked if we don't have access to that Audi for the Rex department?
That was our intention, because when Director Kittner and I spoke yesterday, we actually talked about that specifically, which is why it was referenced today. Now, I don't know when those would come in. I think they already started taking orders from what I understand.
Yeah. I'm on the list myself for the F-150.
That was definitely something we thought of as a plan. And if the F-150s are too far out, we also talked about potentially substituting them with other electronic vehicles that might be available. But yes, using that for recreation was definitely one of the ideas that we had.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from our colleagues for Ms. Mancuso? Seeing none, Ms. Mancuso, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday.
Thank you.
Great job, Mancuso.
Yep. And I think that brings us to our public comment period. Do we have anyone from the public with us? I thought I saw one of our local reporters, Mr. Waltz.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Township Committee. We'll now begin the budget public comment portion of the meeting. If any meeting attendee would like to address the Township Committee, please use the raise your hand function and we'll allow you 3 minutes to address the committee. Do we have any takers? I see no one, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Waltz. Seeing no one, we are closing the public comment period, and I am motioning that we adjourn and meet again next Saturday at 10 a.m. starting at 10.
Vic has his hand up.
Uh-oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Can I just say that we needed to be more prepared for these hearings. And
Yep.
not getting the department accomplishments puts us at a disadvantage. We should have received those before today. People come before us and they're very proud of their work. They like to talk about what they've done and they want to talk about what they're going to do. And it would have been more productive for us to have this stuff from every department.
Agreed.
And so I want to make sure for the next hearing, we get this stuff before whatever's missing that we don't have. And I want to get everything else too, because this gives us a picture of the whole department, because not everybody's assigned to a particular standing committee that works with the department. So having this gives us knowledge of the entire community, of entire township operation. So Mr. Jimes and Ms. Barnett, get that stuff to us, please.
Any
Yeah,
other?
I would just concur. I was going to put it in an email, but since Mr. DeLuca brought it up publicly, there's a lot we're missing, and it's been frustrating. It's been kind of a frustrating morning. It's great to like buzz through everything, but I also feel like I was not prepared enough. I mean, I had the spreadsheet, but again, I don't want to reiterate necessarily what Mr. DeLuca said, but it's just been a little frustrating is the word. So we need to have this stuff well in advance. And, if some departments have given their, why are they writing stuff up if we're not going to see it? It's a waste of time. So yeah, I concur.
Yeah, and even if it's piecemeal, I mean, it gives us an opportunity to really read into it. If we had the police report back in December, we could have gotten this in January and had a look through it.
Duly noted. Good comments. Any other comments?
Yeah, Mayor, just to conclude, in between snow flurries in our parking lot, I counted 7 vehicles in our empty parking lot as an inventory for the vehicles that we have. And to answer Mr. DeLuca's question from earlier this morning, last year we were at roughly $387,000 for a tax point. This year we've gone up to $388,400, but we haven't been certified yet by the county tax board, but that's where the number should land.
So just, so you said earlier we're on a hard tax cap of 2%. So knowing what a tax point is, what would the aggregate of that 2% mean? How much can we actually, in real numbers, how much can we actually increase the budget that's under cap?
So what we're staring at right now with the raw data that you have in front of us, we're about 10 tax points high, and we need to come in at somewhere around 2.
So
that's not taking into account debt service the capital improvement fund, and the pensions. So that'll probably move up to somewhere around 3 or 3.5.
Other
So we're
comments?
talking about real money here.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Tax point roughly to the average assessed home is about $50.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. With that, I'm going to motion that we adjourn. Second.
Second,
Right. All aye.
Mayor, let me give you a roll call. Ms. Adams,
yes.
Ms. Cripe,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. McGehee,
Yes.
Mayor Daffis.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. Good afternoon, everyone. See you next Saturday, starting at 10 a.m.
Thank you.